Chapter 220. You are. Chen Yubing quickly turned around and was about to pay his respects. However, when he saw the middle-aged man, he was clearly stunned. Junior. Junior Uncle Bai? Chen Yubing's heart roared, and his expression changed drastically. He might have known that the people guarding the barrier outside Freezing Sky Clan's territory were all from Freezing Sky Clan, but he also knew that the people guarding the barrier here were definitely the same. However, he had never expected that the person guarding this place would be the man in front of him. He had only seen this person once in the past, but he had a deep impression of him. In truth, he was not the only one who knew of this person's existence. Most of the people in Freezing Sky Clan knew of his existence. No wonder he allowed us to stand on the barrier. Chen Yubing was very nervous. He bowed deeply to the middle-aged man with a respectful expression. I, Chen Yubing, disciple of Freezing Sky Clan, greet Uncle Master Bai. The middle-aged man nodded slightly and no longer bothered himself with Chen Yubing. Instead, he looked at Su Ming and, after sizing him up a few times, he spoke calmly. What's your name? When the middle-aged man sized Su Ming up with his gaze, he could clearly feel a wave of pressure coming towards him. But what puzzled him was that this pressure did not intimidate him. Instead, for some unknown reason, it gave him a sense of familiarity. I am Su Ming. Greetings, Uncle Master Bai. Su Ming wrapped his fist in his palm and spoke calmly. He must have just transcended, the middle-aged man said slowly. Yes. Su Ming nodded. You shouldn't have been taken into Freezing Sky Clan, or else with your status as a divine general, those old men wouldn't have only sent outer sect disciples to receive you. The middle-aged man's voice was still cold. Yes. Su Ming nodded again. It's fine if you don't want to go to Freezing Sky Clan. Stay here and guard this place with me. Be my disciple. Besides me, there aren't many in the entire Freezing Sky Clan who can teach you a suitable cultivation method. There was a tone in the middle-aged man's words that allowed no refusal. Su Ming was stunned. Chen Yubing was also stunned. His eyes were filled with envy. As for Han Fei Zi, she lowered her head and didn't say a word. This, Junior already has a master. Su Ming hesitated for a moment. He could feel that the closeness between him and the middle-aged man became stronger as they conversed with each other. Oh, who is it? I'll personally make him give up. The middle-aged man's voice was calm, but it revealed a shocking arrogance. It's Tian Xiezi. It was the first time Su Ming was suddenly taken in as a disciple by two people. The moment he said this name, the middle-aged man's expression suddenly became strange. He seemed helpless, as if he didn't know whether to laugh or cry, as if he was angry. In the end, his expression turned into a cold snort. Acknowledge him as your master. If there comes a day when you regret it, you can look for me. When Chen Yubing heard that name, his expression changed once again, and he looked at Su Ming in surprise. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he did not. However, he instinctively took a step back and widened the distance between him and Su Ming. A sense of foreboding gradually formed in Su Ming's heart. It did not matter whether it was the middle-aged man's words or Chen Yubing's instinctive actions. All of them seemed to be conveying a rather bad meaning. Let's not talk about this anymore. You three, tell me, what do you see standing here? The middle-aged man's voice was still cold. He did not look at Su Ming, but at the vast world beyond the barrier. Su Ming fell silent and looked at the ground before him. The roars seemed to reach his ears once again. The entire world beyond the barrier was enveloped in a desolate and bloody atmosphere. It might have seemed quiet, but it gave Su Ming an oppressive feeling. That oppressive feeling came from the silence, from the desolate land, from the black soil, and from the endless barrier under his feet. Hatred. I see hatred. Chen Yubing was the first to speak. His eyes sparkled as he looked at the land. The shaman's hatred towards us, and our hatred towards them. Chen Yubing's words were firm, as if he was very confident in his answer. You're right. This is what the old people in Freezing Sky Clan instilled into us, but it doesn't make any sense. The middle-aged man said coldly. Chen Yubing smiled bitterly and lowered his head in agreement. His answer was indeed the common understanding of most of the people in Freezing Sky Clan towards the world beyond the barrier. What about you, lass? Tell me, what do you see? The middle-aged man did not look at Han Fei, but continued looking at the desolate land. Han Fei's face was still slightly pale. After a moment of pensive silence, she said softly, "I don't see anything." The moment she said those words, the middle-aged man turned his head around and cast Han Fei a deep look. "What's your name?" "I am Yin Fei." Han Fei bowed and answered respectfully. The middle-aged man remained silent for a moment before he asked Su Ming, "Su Ming, what do you see?" After a long while, Su Ming answered languidly, "I see desire." The left preceptor took in a good disciple. That old coot Tian Xia also took in a good disciple. The middle-aged man let out a long sigh and lifted his right hand to point at the world beyond the barrier. "You can see the land of South Morning as a circle." As he spoke, he swung his right hand before him, and a layer of black light appeared out of thin air. A black circle appeared before the crowd. "This is the barrier." As he spoke, he drew another small circle in the circle with his right hand. "Inside is the inner world. Outside is the place you see." The barrier exists to prevent the invasion of ferocious beasts and the invasion of shamans. As for the shamans, they are a tribe that is completely different from us. The shaman tribes have a system similar to ours. They also have their own elders, but they are called patriarchs. You will know more about these things in the future. When Su Ming heard the middle-aged man's words, he suddenly had an urge. After a moment of silence, he hesitated for a moment before he asked, "Senior, if there is a barrier in the land of South Morning, then what is beyond the barrier? Where are the other continents of the Berserker tribe like now?" "I don't know," the middle-aged man answered calmly. "I only know that the Great Yu dynasty still exists. I know this because the deity statues will occasionally appear, and there will be divine generals who will be given titles. As for the continent where the Great Yu dynasty is, I've never been there. In truth, it's incredibly rare for the people in the land of South Morning to walk through the shaman tribe and leave the land of South Morning. By the way, your master, Tian Xia, he once left the land of South Morning. According to him, he went to the Great Yu dynasty and made quite a few good friends there. I don't know whether other people believe him, but I don't believe him. Besides the land of South Morning and the Great Yu dynasty, I don't know whether there are still berserkers in the other continents. The Berserker tribe has already declined. We are no longer as glorious as we were during the time of the first god of berserkers." The middle-aged man sighed softly, and his expression was a little downcast. Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. He had never heard of these secrets before. As his heart trembled, he looked at the vast world beyond the barrier, and a feeling of helplessness and distance filled his heart. "I know that the Alliance of the Western region exists, because I came from the Alliance of the Western region." Su Ming mumbled quietly in his heart. "All right, besides the guards, no one is allowed to stay here for long. You." The middle-aged man swung his arm, and just as he was about to dismiss Su Ming and the others, a moaning roar suddenly came from the world beyond the barrier. With an increasingly louder sound, it charged towards them with a howl that grew louder with each passing moment. The moment that sound appeared, the barrier under Su Ming's feet immediately shuddered, and a powerful pressure rose naturally out of thin air. The strength of that pressure instantly reached its peak, causing Han Fei and Qin Yu Bing's expressions to change drastically, and they coughed out a mouthful of blood. If the middle-aged man had not swung his right hand and caused a violent gust of wind to sweep Han Fei and Qin Yu Bing back and send them out of the mountain range, the two of them would have been heavily injured. Su Ming did not retreat, because at that moment, when he heard the moaning sound, the presence of transcendence surged forth from his body. That presence spread out from his body and turned into a layer of black mist. That black mist surrounded his body and turned into a black armor, the divine general's illusory armor. The appearance of the armor allowed him to withstand the mighty pressure from the mountain range barrier, albeit with great difficulty. His eyes shone brilliantly as he looked at the vast world in the distance. What he saw next caused his entire body to tremble, and he sucked in a sharp breath. Han Fei and Qin Yu Bing could not see what he saw. They were not standing on the barrier. What they saw at that moment was the world distorting and blocking out all their gazes. Only Su Ming and the middle-aged man, named by his side, who had a grave expression on their faces, saw that scene. The sea of clouds tumbled about in the vast world beyond the barrier. Those clouds were dark, and as they tumbled about, they looked like black fog that covered an area of several thousands of leagues. Within that sea of clouds, Su Ming saw a gigantic, ferocious beast that left him in disbelief. That was a gigantic mackerel pike. With the world as its ocean, it leapt into the air in the distance, and the moaning sound came from its mouth. Su Ming also saw a person standing on its back. That person was a woman. Her face could not be seen clearly, but he could see that she wore a long purple robe. Her black hair floated in the air, and she looked as if she was a peerless beauty. She is a member of the shaman tribe. A cold voice came from Su Ming's side. The middle-aged man, named by, lifted his foot and took a step towards the sky beyond the barrier. The moment he took that step, a large amount of white fog suddenly surged out of his body. That white fog surrounded his entire body and turned into a white armor that was completely different from the one Su Ming wore. The armor exuded a powerful presence, causing the middle-aged man to look as if he could not be defeated. Divine General, Su Ming's heart trembled. He finally knew why he felt close to this middle-aged man, why Chen Yubing was so nervous and respectful when he saw this person, why this person allowed Su Ming and the others to stand on the barrier, and why he took him in as his disciple. It was because this person was the same as Su Ming, a divine general. Besides, he was not a divine general of transcendence, but a divine general of bone sacrifice. There is one more chapter. It will be slightly later. The plot of the map will change, and there will be a lot of new information. It will be slightly difficult to write. He originally wanted to write 2 chapters today, but since he made a promise, he had to do his best. It will still be 3 chapters. If you still have recommendations and monthly votes, please support me. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 2:21. In the sky beyond the barrier, the middle-aged man with the surname by wore white armor and gave off a threatening presence. He stared coldly at the mackerel pike that was thousands of miles long and the shaman woman standing on its back, which was getting closer to him. Booming sounds reverberated through the mountain range's barrier. Complicated runic symbols appeared one after another on the mountain range, causing the pressure on it to become stronger, to the point where Su Ming was almost unable to withstand it. You again? I didn't take your life last time, but if you keep bothering me, I'll kill you. The middle-aged man's face was aloof as he stood in the sky. His words were icy cold, and the moment he spoke, his voice was like thunder rumbling in the air. It shook the sky and earth, causing the gigantic mackerel pike in the distance to freeze. I borrowed the shaman beast from my tribe. You can't kill me. Bai Chongzai, give me what my older sister left behind. If you don't give it to me, even if I lose this time, I will come again. A woman's voice sounded from the mackerel pike, drifting over. Begone! A chilling glint appeared in the middle-aged man's eyes. He lifted his right hand and swung at the air before him. A booming sound that shook the sky and earth reverberated in the air, and a powerful pressure erupted forth from the barrier where Su Ming was. Su Ming could not withstand that pressure. He quickly retreated, and the instant the pressure erupted, he left the barrier of the mountain range. When he looked over once again, the world before him was distorted. The distorted air blocked his vision, causing him to not see the middle-aged man beyond the barrier, the gigantic mackerel pike that made his heart tremble, and the woman from the shaman tribe. He could only hear muffled booms coming from the world beyond the barrier, causing the pressure to become stronger. Su Ming could not get closer and could only continue retreating. Only when he retreated several tens of thousands of feet back to Han Fei Zi and Chen Yubing's side did the pressure stop spreading out. Brother Su, what happened? Could it be that the shaman tribe has launched a full-scale invasion? Chen Yubing's face was pale, and he immediately asked in shock. Han Fei Zi also looked at Su Ming, and there was a questioning look in her eyes. No, Only one shaman came. Su Ming looked at the distortions on the barrier in the distance and spoke languidly. Fortunately, I knew it couldn't be such a coincidence. It just had to happen when we arrived. However, Brother Su, we should hurry up and leave. The transmission array should be almost ready. Qin Yu Bing couldn't hide his nervousness as he kept looking at the barrier mountain range. Su Ming cast a glance at the barrier mountain range once again and quelled the shock in his heart. As he came to understand the land more, he came to understand the land of South Morning and the entire Berserker tribe more and more. Gradually, he became uncertain about his desire to return to the alliance of the Western region. Brother Su, let's go. Qin Yu Bing was feeling slightly anxious. He urged Su Ming once again. If it was anyone else, he would have ignored them a long time ago, but he did not dare to do so with Su Ming. Su Ming nodded. He knew that the battle beyond the barrier was not something he could participate in with his current level of cultivation. With his current level of cultivation, he could not even fight against the pressure from the barrier, much less help him. Besides, the middle-aged man did not need any help at all. When Qin Yu Bing saw that Su Ming had agreed to leave, he let out a sigh of relief in his heart. The three of them turned into long arcs and gradually left the place. Before long, they returned to the mountain, surrounded by golden light. Su Ming was still looking at the barrier in the distance from the mountain. When Su Ruyu also noticed what was happening on the barrier, in her nervousness, she completely activated the rune. Only when the light from the relocation rune surrounded him did Su Ming avert his gaze and gradually disappear with the light from the rune. Once the rumbling sound faded away, the mountain regained its calm. The golden light shone brightly and disappeared. After several relocations and resting, Su Ming and the others stepped into the final relocation rune 7 days later. When they reappeared, they would be in Freezing Sky Clan. In the inner parts of the land of South Morning, there was a tribe whose name shook the land of South Morning. That tribe's name was Freezing Sky. The great tribe of Freezing Sky was one of the only two big tribes in the land of South Morning. Its headquarters were located in the northern part of the land of South Morning. The area it occupied might not be big, but there were plenty of tribes of various sizes that belonged to Freezing Sky in the land of South Morning. Once these tribes submitted to them, the great tribe of Freezing Sky's power became the same as the great tribe of Western Sea. Not only did they intimidate the land of South Morning, they also caused the shamans outside the barrier to be unable to step into the barrier for thousands of years. Freezing Sky Clan was created by the great tribe of Freezing Sky a long time ago, and they used it to grow from a middle-sized tribe to a big tribe. It was located in a mountain range covered in snow in the northern part of the land of South Morning. This region was the only one in the entire barrier in the land of South Morning that was covered in snow all year round. It occupied half of the north, and together with Freezing Sky Tribe, it became the strongest force in the north. Freezing Sky Clan was huge, and there were plenty of disciples there. They came from almost all the tribes within the territory of Freezing Sky Tribe. There were 9 main summits in the entire Freezing Sky Clan. These 9 main summits were all covered in snow and surrounded each other on the ground. Each of the main summits could be called the headquarters of Freezing Sky Clan. Behind the 9 main summits were several smaller ice summits that stretched out endlessly. They were scattered all over the place, and if anyone looked down from the sky, they would be able to see that the position of these summits was like a rune that exuded an awe-inspiring presence. It was rumored that the northern part of the land of South Morning was a sea. However, thousands of years ago, when Freezing Sky Clan was founded, the sea was frozen by an art, causing a layer of ice that was as thick as the ground to appear on the surface of the sea. That was how Freezing Sky Clan's territory came to be. There were also rumors that there was still seawater at the bottom of the endless layer of ice under Freezing Sky Clan. However, just what was in that place, and why Freezing Sky Clan chose this place to freeze the surface of the sea to turn it into land, was a secret that no one could guess. The 9 main summits and the numerous secondary summits were on the frozen land. The end could not be seen, and it was like a gigantic city that formed Freezing Sky Clan's great frozen plains. However, there was a building that symbolized Freezing Sky Clan in the sky above the 9 summits. That place was known as Freezing Sky Clan's Heaven Gate. Freezing Sky was the symbol of Freezing Sky Clan. It might be called a gate, but in truth, it was 9 floating continents. These 9 continents were stacked on top of each other to form the shape of a tower. Each continent was 100,000 feet apart, and with the 9 main summits as the center, they floated in the sky. There were some simple yet elegant towers built on each continent. The disciples of Freezing Sky Clan who could stay in Heaven Gate were definitely not ordinary people. If they lifted their heads, they would only be able to see the 5th continent. As for the land above, it was hidden by the sea of clouds and could not be seen. There was a strange power in this place. Even if they flew, they would not be able to get close to it without permission. There were about 100,000 disciples in Freezing Sky Clan, including those who went out to train and those who guarded Sky Mist Barrier. The saying that all 100,000 berserkers were in Freezing Sky was not set out of thin air. On this day, there were more than 100 platforms at the mountainside of the 4th main summit. These platforms were spread out, and there were runes on each of them. At that moment, there was a strong golden light shining on one of the platforms. Gradually, as the cold wind blew, 5 people appeared on the rune on the platform. Freezing Sky Clan. The cold wind blew on Su Ming's face, and there were even some snowflakes on it, causing his face to feel cold. This was the first time he felt real snow in the land of South Morning. It was not because he was training, nor was it because he was casting an art. There were 3 people sitting cross-legged on the platform. As the golden light from the rune on the platform shone, the 3 of them opened their eyes. Junior brother Chun and junior sister Su should be back. One of them spoke with a calm expression on his face. As he did so, he swept his gaze past the 5 people who appeared on the golden light. After a moment, the golden light from the rune on the platform disappeared, revealing Su Ming and the other 4 people. Junior sister Fong, you're back as well? Junior brother Chun, how did it feel to go out this time? The 3 people sitting on the platform stood up, and one of them asked with a smile. Senior brother Zhou, don't tease me. Let's not talk about what happened this time. Once Chun Yubing returned to Freezing Sky Clan, he had clearly relaxed. When he heard the words, he laughed and walked towards the 3 people. Come, let me introduce you to my senior brothers. This is junior sister Han Fei Zi. Han Fei Zi frowned. It was clear that she did not like this sort of acquaintance, but since she had just arrived in Freezing Sky Clan, she forced down the discomfort she felt and nodded towards the 3 people. As for Han Songzi, she smiled and greeted the people before walking towards Su Ming. Su Ming stood by the side and watched the people talking animatedly. Once Qin Yubing introduced them, the people became much friendlier. Su Ruyu had also returned to the clan, and that haughty look gradually returned to her face. Her expression was similar to most of the other people's. This was an expression that most of the disciples in Freezing Sky Clan had, haughtiness. Su Ming did not bother himself with these people. He walked forward alone and stood at the edge of the platform. He looked at the land in the distance, and all he saw was white snow. The snow gave him a unique feeling. When he stood there, it was as if he was looking at the snow on Dark Mountain. The snow fell on his face in the cold wind, and the cold feeling made him feel familiar. Feeling a little uncomfortable, Han Song-zi's soft voice traveled into his ears. I was the same when I first came to Freezing Sky Clan. Han Song-zi looked at Su Ming and smiled gently. I'm all right, Su Ming said with a smile. In truth, Su Ming's appearance had long since attracted the attention of the 3 people. They had been ordered to wait for him. They were not surprised when they saw Han Song-zi returning, but when they saw Su Ming, they were surprised. However, since Qin Yubing did not introduce him, they did not immediately ask about him. When they saw Su Ming walking away alone, the 3 of them could not help but ask him questions. Junior brother Chun, who is he? Why'd he come back with you? That person. Qin Yubing hesitated for a moment, but before he could finish speaking, a long arc suddenly charged towards them from the sky in the distance. That long arc was incredibly domineering, and as it charged forward, the other Freezing Sky Clan disciples who were also moving through the air quickly avoided it, or else they would crash into it. The disciples that had dodged were all furious, but when they saw the figure in the rainbow, they shook their heads and ignored him. Hey, which one of you Berserker sons is called Su Ming? A loud roar came from the long arc, and it was so loud that it was deafening. The rainbow approached and floated outside the platform, revealing an extremely burly man who was like a small mountain. This burly man's hair was messy, and he reeked of alcohol. He held a large gourd in his hand, and after saying this, he burped and glared at the people on the platform. Your grandpa who is asking you a question. Which one of you is Su Ming? The third chapter has been delivered, and tomorrow we will continue with the third chapter. It continued. 3 takes, 3 takes, 3 takes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 222. The moment they saw the man, the expressions of the 3 people who were originally waiting for Chun Yu Bing's group on the platform immediately changed. There was surprise on their faces. It was clear that they did not expect this troublesome person to come to the 4th summit. Uncle Master who? The 3 of them smiled wryly and quickly wrapped their fists in their palms to bow towards the man. The hierarchy in Freezing Sky Clan was strict. If they did not greet their elders, they would be punished. The 3 of them might be resigned, but they still had to greet him. Chun Yu Bing had a strange expression on his face. He instinctively looked at Su Ming, who was standing not too far away, then wrapped his fist in his palm to greet the man. Su Ruyu, who was by his side, did the same. The man seemed to be rather impatient. Once he swept his gaze across the crowd, his eyes fell on Han Fei Zi. Hey, Berserker girl, are you Su Ming? As he spoke, he picked up the gourd and drank a big mouthful from it. He wiped the corners of his mouth and shouted with a drunken look. Han Fei Zi's face darkened. She cast the man a cold glance, but did not speak. Who's Su Ming here? Don't make me mad. The man let out a furious roar, causing the snow around him to tremble. I'm here. Who are you? Su Ming's face was calm. He turned around at the edge of the platform and looked at the man. The man scratched his head and sized up Su Ming before he shouted in displeasure, "Move aside. I'm looking for Su Ming, not me. You're Su Ming, but you're not the person I'm looking for." The moment he said those words, the people on the platform immediately stifled their laughter. If it were not for the man's power, they would have laughed out loud a long time ago. Su Ming was also momentarily stunned. He rarely met such a stupid person. He smiled wryly and nodded his head before speaking once again. I am Su Ming. Nonsense. Didn't you say you're Su Ming? Why did you say you're Su Ming the moment I heard I'm looking for him? I'm telling you, your grandpa who is smart. Don't even think about lying to me. I hate it when people lie to me. The man glared at Su Ming and strode towards him with a fierce look on his face. His imposing presence, coupled with his majestic body, created an intimidating presence that came crashing down on Su Ming. Under that presence, all the people on the platform started retreating. Even Han Zi, who was beside Su Ming, instinctively took a few steps back. She was oppressed by the man's presence. Your grandpa who hates people who lie to me the most. Tian Xie, that old thing, lied to me a few times, but later on, he swore that he would never lie to me again. This time, he told me to look for Su Ming. If you don't have him here, then he's lying to me again. Anger appeared on the man's face. He walked towards Su Ming and glared at him. Tell me, who is Su Ming here? Su Ming frowned. He was originally wondering why the man before him was able to call out his name, but when he saw the strange look on Chun Yu Bing's face, he already had an answer in his heart. When he heard the man mention Tian Xiezi's name, he did not say anything else and brought out the wine pot Tian Xiezi had given him from his bosom. The moment Su Ming brought out the wine pot, the man immediately stared at it. After looking at it for a few moments, he let out a long sigh. His gaze when he looked at Su Ming was no longer fierce, but filled with pity. So you're Su Ming. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You made me ask you so many times. Come, I'll take you to the Old Thing's cave abode. As the man spoke, he sighed once again and left the platform. The bad feeling in Su Ming's heart grew stronger. After a moment of hesitation, he wrapped his fist in his palm towards Han Zi. Han Fei Zi, Chinyu, Su Ting, and the others. I'll be taking my leave first. If there's a chance, I'll meet up with all of you again. Brother Su, congratulations, congratulations. Chinyu Bing quickly wrapped his fist in his palm and spoke with a strange look on his face. Once I've settled down, I'll come and find you. Han Feizi's voice was still cold as she looked at Su Ming. I'm at the third summit. Brother Su, if you're free, you can come and visit me. Try the tea I brewed myself. Han Song-zi smiled gently. Su Ming, why aren't you leaving yet? How long did you make me wait? Before Su Ming could reply, the man's displeased roar traveled forth from Adair. Su Ming frowned. Once he nodded at the crowd, he stood up and stepped into the air. He was dressed in green robes, and his long hair moved with the wind, giving him an air of elegance. When the man saw Su Ming following him, he charged forward at full speed. Su Ming saw a world covered in snow. He sucked in a deep breath. The cold in this place reminded him of the winter in Dark Mountain. In silence, he followed the man in front of him, and the two of them turned into two long arcs that flew out of the fourth summit. No one stopped them along the way. Even if someone saw them, the moment they saw the man, they would frown and avoid him. It's rare for the old man to go out, and he brought a junior brother with him. Why is your grandpa, who's so unlucky? I'm drinking, and he has to come and fetch you. No, it's not your grandpa who's unlucky. You're the unlucky one. You're really unlucky. You're too unlucky. The man would occasionally turn his head back to look at Su Ming as he moved forward and mumbled. However, his mumbles sounded like growls to Su Ming. His voice was deafening even when he heard it at such a close distance. Enough. Su Ming's face turned cold, and he said coldly, How dare you stop your grandpa who from talking to himself? The man immediately glared at Su Ming and roared. Su Ming felt a slight headache coming on, especially when he saw that the man seemed to have been wronged as he roared. When he remembered that the man had come to fetch him, and based on his words, he seemed to be Tian Xiezi's disciple, Su Ming sighed. Tian Xiezi told me that I'm his only disciple. The bad feeling in Su Ming's heart grew stronger. All right, how should I address you? Su Ming asked with a wry smile. The man seemed to still be angry. He turned around and ignored Su Ming, continuing to fly forward. After a while, when the two of them passed through several mountains, the man saw that Su Ming was no longer speaking and could not help but speak. I'm warning you, don't talk to me anymore. Don't ask for my name. Even if you ask, your grandpa who won't tell you. I'm angry. All right, how should I address you? Su Ming nodded. Everyone calls me grandpa who, but since we're brothers under the same master, I'll allow you to call me Grandpa Huzi, the man quickly said. He had long since forgotten what he said just now. There was a smug look on his face, as if he was very satisfied with his own name. Yes, Huzi. When did Tian Xiezi's master come back? Su Ming's expression remained the same as he nodded and asked. You didn't see him? The old man just came back. I was drinking when he picked me up and asked me to fetch you. When the man said that, anger appeared on his face. Oh, I really didn't see him. A barely noticeable glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. The old man is a great man. Do you know what a great man is? A great man has to act like a great man. He's the best at making things seem mysterious. The man seemed to have remembered something and took a big swig from his pot of wine. There was a gloomy look on his face. Su Ming clenched his right fist. A cold glint appeared in his eyes, but his expression remained the same as he nodded. He once told me that I'm his only disciple. Before Su Ming finished speaking, the man's face immediately turned angry. He turned around and roared at Su Ming. He also told me the same thing in the past, but when I was brought back by him, I realized that there was a senior brother above me, and there was another senior brother above my senior brother. A smile appeared on Su Ming's face, but that smile was a little forced, and there was even coldness in it. He also told me. This time, before Su Ming even finished speaking, the man immediately spoke up. I know. He must have told you that he has a lot of berserker vessels, and you can choose as you please. Su Ming clenched his right fist even tighter. He might have even told you that he has all the skills and divine abilities in Freezing Sky Clan. If you acknowledge him as your master, you can learn and understand them. The smile on Su Ming's face turned even colder. He must have even told you that if you acknowledge him as your master, then you'll know in the future that Freezing Sky Clan is nothing. Damn it, that old man told me all these in the past. They're exactly the same. Junior brother, you're unlucky. You're really unlucky. You're too unlucky. Let me tell you, you're not the only one like this. My senior brother above me also told me the same thing in the past. He went through the same thing as us, and my senior brother also went through the same thing. As the man spoke as if they were in the same boat, Su Ming, and he gradually passed through the towering main summits and arrived at the 9th summit of the great frozen plains of Freezing Sky Clan. The 9 main summits and the numerous secondary summits formed the great frozen plains of Freezing Sky Clan. It corresponded with Heaven Gate and had a majestic presence. The 9 main summits were an incredibly important part of Freezing Sky Clan. Each of them was gigantic. At first glance, they looked like ice mountains that exuded an ancient presence. At that moment, what appeared before Su Ming was the 9th summit. We're here. This is it. The man pointed at the 9th summit beside Su Ming and sighed. Su Ming was momentarily stunned. He had already been disappointed by Tian Xiazi's words on the way here, but when he saw the 9th summit, he could not help but be surprised. How many people live here? Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he looked at the man. Not many. Including the old man and you, there are only 5 people. This is the only thing the old man didn't lie to us about. He does indeed live in Freezing Sky Clan, and he does indeed have a mountain that belongs to him. It's the 9th summit. Su Ming took a deep breath. Finally, he found some comfort in his heart from being lied to. Our eldest senior brother is always in isolation. He only comes out during the day of eternal creation. Every single time he comes out, he makes a huge ruckus. Even if you drink the most, you'll still be woken up by him. You'll be tormented to death if you listen to his cries of, "I'm finally out." You can treat him as a turtle. He usually sleeps, and when he wakes up, he'll yawn and go back to sleep, the man mumbled. Su Ming listened and found himself speechless for a long time. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 223. Second senior brother's personality was very good. He liked flowers and plants, so he circled a large piece of land in the mountains to plant. Later, because he was too hard-working, he believed that he could do better, but he planted too much. Slowly, most of the land in the mountains became his. If you walk out in the middle of the night, you should be able to see his figure moving around the area. Second senior brother has a strange habit of going out at night to look after his plants. Don't be afraid when you see him. That guy is always full of energy. He always thinks that someone will sneak in and steal his plants. The man brought Su Ming into the 9th summit and landed on the stairs halfway up the mountain, mumbling under his breath. Su Ming could no longer describe what he was thinking at that moment. He stood on the stairs and looked at the place beneath his feet, which might have been clean in the past, but was now in ruins, especially when he saw that there were plants that could grow in snow all over the place. When he remembered what the man had said to his second senior brother, he could not help but smile wryly. The man mumbled as he walked up the stairs. As he spoke, a thought suddenly appeared in Su Ming's mind. He lifted his head swiftly and saw a man in white standing on the snow not too far away. He had no idea when he had appeared. He was standing there and looking at Su Ming and the man with a smile on his face. "Who's he? This must be our youngest junior brother." The man looked to be in his 30s. He had an elegant face, and his white robes exuded a gentle air that was not cold. "Morning, second senior brother," the man said casually and pointed at Su Ming. He pointed at Su Ming and said, "He's the youngest junior brother the old coot brought here." "What's his name?" "Su." "That's right, it's me." Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the sky. It was still slightly dark, as if dusk was about to arrive. However, there was still light from the snow in the northern part of the snow, causing the place to still look bright. However, he could not use the word morning to greet someone at this time. "Yes, I did wake up a little early today." The gentle man yawned and nodded at Su Ming with a smile. "Youngest junior brother, so your name is Su." This name, Not bad, not bad. Junior brother, you have to believe in yourself. Believe that you can do everything. As the man in white spoke, he lifted his head and looked at the sky. I'm not going to talk to you guys anymore. I woke up too early today. I'm going to catch up on sleep. I still have to keep watch at night. I lost a lot of my plants last night. The white-robed man turned around and was just about to leave when he suddenly came to a halt. He turned his head around and looked at Su Ming with a gentle gaze. Youngest junior brother, everything in the mountain might be different from what Master said, but there is one thing that will never change. Freezing Sky Clan, the 9th summit, is your home. No one can bully you here. The man in white smiled and turned to leave. Su Ming fell silent. He could not see through the white-robed man's level of cultivation. In fact, to him, this person was just like a mortal. There was not a hint of pressure or ripples of chi coming from him. However, his words just now remained clearly in Su Ming's mind, refusing to disappear even after a long time had passed. Don't trust this guy. Unfortunately, another voice came from beside Su Ming and shattered this feeling. The man called Hu Zi had a gloomy look on his face. When I came up the mountain in the past, second senior brother also said the same thing. I was really touched, but in truth, youngest junior brother, you don't know this. I've been beaten up by the people from Freezing Sky Clan many times over the years. Every single time I ran back to the mountain, second senior brother never helped me. Every single time I went to him, he would be so angry that he wanted to take revenge with me. But every single time he got angry, he would fall asleep. I once waited at his place for 3 months and refused to leave, but he was really patient and slept for 3 months straight. When the man spoke of the past, his face was filled with grievance. Didn't he tell you just now? Believe in yourself. He believed that he could do better. That's why the 9th summit became his farm. Su Ming looked at the mountain, at the man, and at the direction in which the white-robed man left. He was instantly rendered speechless. There, that's your Grandpa Who's place. Your Grandpa Who isn't a turtle, and I don't like flowers either. I just like drinking. That's my cave abode. I don't usually come out. When I'm awake, I drink. When I'm drunk, I sleep. When I'm awake, I drink again. When I'm drunk, I sleep again. The man pointed into the distance, then picked up the gourd and took another sip. The old man lives on a mountain. Go see him yourself. I don't want to see him. Every time I see him, I can't control my temper. The man mumbled and patted Su Ming's shoulder. Youngest junior brother, good luck. As he spoke, he turned around and continued drinking while walking on the snow towards his cave abode. Su Ming stood there alone and looked at his surroundings. At that moment, a gust of wind blew past, bringing with it snowflakes that floated in the air before him. Su Ming shook his head vigorously. Freezing Sky Clan was similar to what he had imagined, but also different. Freezing Sky Clan was the same, but the 9th summit was different. He stood where he was and thought silently for a moment before lifting his head to look at the top of the mountain. From there, he could vaguely see a grand building at the top of the mountain. From the distance, it exuded a majestic presence. Su Ming walked up the stairs filled with plants growing on the snow and walked towards the top of the mountain. Since he was already here, he did not choose to give up. Since he had already accepted Tian Xiezi as his master, then unless absolutely necessary, Su Ming would not choose him again. As he continued walking, the mountain wind became stronger. The moaning sounds of the wind echoed in the air. Snow swirled around Su Ming, fusing with the silence of the entire mountain and turning into an indescribable feeling that made Su Ming's heart gradually calm down. Such a tall mountain. It's one of the 9 main summits of Freezing Sky Clan. Right now, it must be the quietest compared to the other main summits. Su Ming did not move quickly. As the sky gradually darkened and dusk arrived, he finally arrived at the top of the mountain. Once he walked down the final step, what appeared before him was the grand and majestic building he had seen from a distance. However, when he looked at it up close, he found that the building was like a hall. Yet even though it was majestic, it was broken and gave off an air of decay. There were 9 pillars nailed to the ground around the hall. They surrounded the hall and formed a thin screen of light that enveloped Su Ming within. He could only look at it, not enter. It's sealed. Su Ming was stunned. The ninth summit of Freezing Sky Clan has one main hall, 6 subsidiary halls, and 7 halls. An old voice Su Ming was familiar with came from behind him. Su Ming turned around and saw an old man walking out from the back of the hall, not too far away. The old man wore a white robe and had an unfathomable smile on his face. He looked like an enigmatic senior. Each of the 7 halls has its own function. If there's someone guarding the hall, they can activate the power of the mountain. All those who manage to enter the main hall will immediately become one of the 9 lords of Freezing Sky Clan's Great Frozen Plains. In Freezing Sky Clan, the duties of the school are secondary. It doesn't matter whether it's the right or left preceptor, the Dharma protector of Freezing Clan, or even the elders. They are just titles. All of these can change. The only thing that doesn't change is the 9 lords of the Great Frozen Plains. They are also the masters of the 9 main summits on a land of ice and snow. The 9 lords of the Great Frozen Plains and the 9 lords of Heaven Gate. These 18 people are the strongest people in Freezing Sky Clan, besides some of the old people. It's a pity that there are only 8 lords in Heaven Gate and 7 lords of the Great Frozen Plains. The 9th summit and the 1st summit don't have anyone who can enter the main hall. Su Ming remained silent. He did not speak. Tian Xiezi walked towards him slowly and stood several dozens of feet away from him. He had his back turned towards the sealed hall as he looked at Su Ming. "My disciple, how do you feel on your way here?" Tian Xiezi asked with a smile. "I feel like I've been deceived," Su Ming said bluntly. There was no hint of awkwardness on Tian Xiezi's face. He blinked and smiled, but did not speak. "I can ignore the fact that I'm your only disciple that day. But are the Berserker Vessel's skills, ancient scrolls you mentioned real?" Su Ming quelled the anger in his heart and asked calmly. "Of course it's real. Look, I told you that I live in an entire mountain. I didn't lie to you about that, did I? If you want to see it, you can see it any time you want. But you just came today. Why don't I call your 2nd senior brother and 3rd senior brother over? The 4 of us can drink together. What do you think?" Su Ming looked at Tian Xiezi and said in a low voice, "There's no need. Please allow me. I want to see it now." "That's all right." Tian Xiezi hesitated for a moment before he lifted his right hand and swung it at the air. Immediately, the mountain trembled and a stone door rose from the ground beside Tian Xiezi. "This is the place where I store my treasures. The first layer contains Berserker vessels, the second layer contains skills, and the third layer contains ancient scrolls. If you want to see it now, then I'll wait for you here." Tian Xiezi let out a fake cough. "By the way, if there's anything you like, you can take one from each layer. Consider it my gift for you to become my disciple." Tian Xiezi waved his hand, and the stone door immediately opened slowly with a rumbling sound. A purple light shone from within the door. It looked as if there was a great treasure inside. "Don't be greedy. There's only one item in each layer." Tian Xiezi still looked like a powerful senior. He smiled at Su Ming, as if he was very confident in the treasures he had. When Su Ming saw Tian Xiezi's expression, he became skeptical. He walked towards the stone door and stepped in. Su Ming only felt his vision blur. It was as if he had been teleported. Rumbling sounds echoed in his ears. After a moment, the sounds disappeared, and his vision gradually became clear. What appeared before him was a gigantic cave abode. There were countless small caves around the cave, and in each cave, there was a magical artifact. They all looked different, and there were hundreds of them. Yet when Su Ming took a closer look, a strange expression gradually appeared on his face. These are the Berserker vessels he mentioned. Fortunately, Su Ming had prepared himself beforehand. As he looked at the Berserker vessels, a wry smile appeared on his face. "I'm looking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation." Chapter 224. He took a few steps forward and brought out an awl about the size of a palm from a small hole. He squeezed the awl slightly, and a corner of it shattered. There was also a rusted iron blade in another small hole. Of course, there were also some bone vessels that had eroded quite a bit in other small holes. Looking around, Almost all of them were broken items. Even though some of them looked pretty good, after picking them up, they were like the all. With a slight touch, they would immediately shatter. It seemed that if he used a little more strength, they would completely shatter. Oh well, Huzi already said it before. By the looks of it, it's indeed the case. Su-Ming shook his head and laughed bitterly. Once he averted his gaze, he casually picked up the awl he had crushed earlier and put it away in his storage bag. He no longer bothered with it and walked deeper into the cave abode, entering the chamber in the second layer. With the experience he gained from the first layer, Su-Ming no longer held much hope when he stepped into the second layer. However, the instant he walked into the second layer, his heart started racing. There were an endless amount of jade stones floating in midair in the second layer. These jade stones were letting out a gentle light that illuminated the chamber in the second layer. Some of the jade stones were even glowing in various colors. At first glance, Su-Ming could tell that they were extraordinary. Could it be that the divine abilities of Freezing Sky Clan that Tian Xiezi mentioned were real? Su-Ming was momentarily stunned. The glowing jade stones did not seem fake. Even if the colors were fake, Su-Ming could still clearly feel the pressure and intelligence exuding from each jade stone. His breathing quickened slightly. He took a few steps forward and looked at them carefully. He lifted his right hand and grabbed one of the jade stones. He placed it on his palm and focused his attention on it. Immediately, he felt as if his consciousness was being sucked into the jade stone. A row of words and a shadow naturally appeared in his head. Yet before he could pay any attention to it, the words and shadow in his head immediately became dull and disappeared completely. Su-Ming frowned and tried a few more times, but it was the same every single time. A glint appeared in his eyes. He put down the jade stone and took another one, but the result was the same. Is it because my level of cultivation isn't high enough? Su-Ming mumbled. With slight reluctance, he took down a few dozens of jade stones and observed them with rapt attention. However, they would only flash in his head for a moment before disappearing. In fact, once Su-Ming looked at the normal jade that only had a hint of pressure, a change also happened to it. Gradually, his expression turned sour. Su-Ming remained silent for a moment before he sucked in a deep breath and forced down the disappointment in his heart. Eventually, he looked through all the jade stones in the chamber and was certain that all of them were fake. With a wry smile and a shake of his head, he walked into the depths of the chamber to the third layer. If the map of the third layer is also fake. In silence, Su-Ming walked into the chamber in the third layer. The secret room on the third floor was very simple. It was the smallest, and there were some stone shells around it. On top of them were some bamboo slips made of wood, as well as some rolled-up bee skins. Su-Ming suddenly became nervous as he stood there. He longed for the map of the land of South Morning to be real, but he was also worried that he would not be able to find the alliance of the Western region once he saw the real map. This was not the first time he felt such complicated emotions. When he borrowed the map from Tranquil East Tribe at the foot of Tranquil East Tribe, he had also felt the same anxiety. After remaining silent for a moment, Su-Ming let out a deep breath. He did not look at the wooden slips or the bamboo slips, but instead took out one of the bee skins from among the many and opened it slowly to look at it. It's not. There were some runic symbols Su-Ming had never seen before carved on the bee's skin. He cast a glance at it before putting it back and took out the second one. It's not. Su-Ming took out another bee skin and opened it, but it was not a map every single time. When there were only 3 bee skins left before him, his breathing became increasingly rapid. A corner of the second of the 3 bee skins was revealed, and there were faint patterns that looked like the terrain. Su-Ming hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and picking up the bee's skin. He had a strong feeling that the beast's skin in his hands contained the thing he longed to see, the map. To him, entering Freezing Sky Clan and becoming Tian Xiezi's master was not important. What was important was that his goal in coming to Freezing Sky Clan was to return to the alliance of the Western region's map. That was why when Tian Xiezi mentioned that he wanted to take Su-Ming as his disciple, one of the many benefits he offered was that he would have a map of the land of South Morning, and that map was even more complete than Freezing Sky Clan's. Su-Ming was tempted. He did not care whether he could enter Freezing Sky Clan. He only cared about the map. That was why Su Ming agreed to acknowledge Tian Xiezi as his master. At that moment, when he was continuously disappointed in the first and second layer of the chamber, the moment he picked up the bee skin, his nervousness reached its peak. His right hand trembled, and slowly he unfurled the beast's skin before him bit by bit. The instant the beast's skin was completely unfurled and Su Ming looked at it, his body started trembling. He felt as if there was a thunderbolt roaring in his head, and his ears were filled with booming sounds. At that moment, he forgot everything. He forgot that he was in the chamber, forgot that he was in Freezing Sky Clan's 9th summit, forgot that he was in the land of South Morning. Everything was gathered in his eyes, turned into his gaze, and fused into the beast's skin in his hands. It was a tattered piece of beast skin. Although it was tattered, the map drawn on it was relatively complete. An ancient aura emanated from the beast's skin, and anyone who touched it would be able to sense how old it had been when they sensed it. This item should not have been drawn by Tian Xiezi, but something that had existed a long time ago. There were 5 continents on the map. As he looked at the map before him, Su Ming slowly sat down on the ground. Confusion and nostalgia appeared in his eyes. There was sadness on his face as he gently stroked the map with his right hand. He saw the land of South Morning on a map, and he also saw the alliance of the Western region home. Su Ming mumbled. At some point in time, tears fell from his eyes. They flowed down from the corners of his eyes and stained his robes before seeping into them. The 5 continents on the map were divided into 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. Right in the middle was the 5th continent, and there was a cauldron drawn there. The land of South Morning was in the south, and the alliance of the Western region was in the west. But between these 2 continents was a ravine that could not be crossed. His tears stained his robes, and some even fell on the beast's skin. Su Ming lowered his head, so he could not hear the sigh coming from behind him. So, it's because of this that you acknowledged me as your master. There are 2,000 words in this chapter. I'm missing 1,000 words. I'll make up for it in the next few days. 3 chapters in a row is very difficult. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 225. Su Ming stared blankly at the beast skin map before him. The color of the map showed signs of time. The corners of the map had been damaged. He had no idea how long it had been there. Between South Morning and the alliance of the Western region, there was a ravine that seemed impossible to cross. It was a dark line. This black line did not only exist between the land of South Morning and the Western Hemisphere. There is a similar black line between every 2 continents that were adjacent to each other. This map was drawn by someone based on his memories after the second god of Berserkers died. Before the second god of Berserkers, the land of Berserkers was a complete continent. It was incredibly big, and there were very few people who could walk through it. Tian Xiezi's ancient voice traveled forth languidly from behind Su Ming. After the second god of Berserkers died, the land of Berserkers was split up and turned into 5 continents with Great Yu as the center. The spot with the picture of the cauldron in the middle is where Great Yu Dynasty is located. The reason why we used a cauldron to replace it is because this cauldron is the Berserker tribe's tribal weapon. Tian Xiezi's voice was a little low. Great Wilderness Cauldron. The moment those 3 words tumbled out of Tian Xiezi's mouth, Su Ming's body shuddered. His mind snapped out of his immersion in the beast skin map, and the only thing echoing in his ears were the words Great Barren Cauldron. Barren Cauldron. Su Ming's heart trembled violently. Tian Xiezi saw it, and thought that it was because of Su Ming's shock when he heard about Great Yu. He did not know that at that moment, Su Ming's mind was filled with the black stone hanging around his neck, and all the things he saw when he entered the dimension in the stone. I need a barren cauldron to create medicinal pills. What is the connection between this barren cauldron and the great barren cauldron that Tian Xiezi mentioned? Confusion appeared on Su Ming's face. The black lines you see between the 5 continents are suspended blood. They are formed by the second god of Berserker's resentment after he died. It is rumored that this resentment was used by the immortals in the past, and they worked together with the shamans to set up an incredibly cruel rune. This rune caused the 5 continents in the land of berserkers to be unable to be whole. It will be extremely difficult for them to pass through each other. Tian Xiezi's voice reverberated in the secret chamber, lingering for a long time. I don't know why you need this map, and I don't know where your destination is in these 5 continents. But you're my disciple, so I must tell you, work hard to improve your cultivation. Cultivation base is the foundation of everything. If you want to walk out of the land of South Morning, forget about the other continents. Just the world beyond sky, mist barrier alone, is something you cannot cross. First, get yourself out of the barrier, and then think of a way to go to the place you want to go. And all of this, you need a strong cultivation base to rely on. If one's cultivation wasn't high enough, one shouldn't think about anything. Even thinking about it would be useless. Apart from adding to one's worries, it would only make one's heart restless. If one's heart was restless, one's soul would be in chaos, and one's appearance would be scattered, making it difficult for one to advance. Level up. Increase your level of cultivation. Tian Xiezi said softly and lifted his right hand to pat Su Ming's shoulder. You're not the only one with a story. Your eldest senior brother also has a story, and it's the same for your second senior brother. Tian Xiezi paused for a moment, as if he was feeling slightly sentimental. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he looked at the bee skin map before him and asked softly, "What level of cultivation do I need to walk out of Sky Mist Barrier and the land of South Morning?" If you haven't reached the Bone Sacrifice realm, don't even think about walking out of Sky Mist Barrier. Even those in the Bone Sacrifice realm have to be extremely careful outside the barrier. The slightest carelessness can lead to death. There's a blood feud between us berserkers and the shamans. If you can reach the Berserker Soul realm, then you can go in and out of the barrier as you please, but you still have to be careful. As long as you don't run into the great shamans of the shaman tribe and don't go to some dangerous places, then you can still ensure that you don't die, Tian Xiezi said slowly after a moment of silence. If that's the case, then as long as I reach the Berserker Soul realm, then I'll have the right to walk out of the land of South Morning, Su Ming mumbled. It's just the right. The Berserker Soul realm is just the completion of the first great realm for us berserkers. There are definitely other realms after the Berserker Soul realm. It's a pity that no one knows what the higher realms are and how to reach them. Tian Xie sighed softly. Why? Su Ming lifted his head and looked at Tian Xie. Because the 4th god of berserkers hasn't appeared for a long, long time. Only when the 4th god of berserkers appears will he be able to sense the 3rd god of berserkers' will and obtain the god of berserkers' legacy. Only then can he sense the higher realms and create the statue of the god of berserkers after the Berserker Soul realm. Only then can all the berserkers who have reached the Berserker Soul realm sense it. Su Ming looked at Tian Xiezi, and after a long while, he spoke unhurriedly. On my way here, I ran into a man named by beside Sky Mist Barrier. He's a divine general of Bone Sacrifice. He mentioned you before, saying that you once walked out of the land of South Morning and went to the Great Yu Dynasty. I wonder if this is true. Tian Xiezi fell silent, and a complicated look appeared on his face. He lifted his head and looked into the other direction of the chamber. That place was empty, and no one knew what he was looking at. Gradually, nostalgia appeared in Tian Xiezi's eyes. I don't know whether what I saw was Great Yu. Wait until you reach the Berserker Soul realm and you're about to leave, then I'll tell you. Tian Xiezi closed his eyes, and his voice became even more ancient. I know a person. He hasn't reached the Transcendence realm and doesn't live in Great Yu. He lives in another continent, but he has left the continent many times. One of them, he should have gone to the Great Yu Dynasty. Su Ming lowered his head as he spoke. When Tian Xiezi heard these words, his eyes flew open. A brilliant glint appeared briefly in his eyes before it immediately disappeared. The instant that glint shone in his eyes, a great pressure descended on them. That pressure disappeared too quickly to the point that it was easy for people to think that it was just a figment of their imagination. However, Su Ming's heart trembled. During that instant just now, he could clearly feel his qi freezing up. In fact, the ninth summit had even shuddered slightly. He went a great you from another continent before he reached the transcendence realm. This is impossible, Tianxie Zi said slowly. Impossible? Perhaps. Su Ming closed his eyes, hiding the bewilderment in them. The more he understood, the more he felt that there were too many mysteries in his memories in Dark Mountain. It was especially so when he saw Lei Chun and Bei Ling on the chains of Han Mountain, who he could not tell whether they were real or fake, and when the elder appeared as if he wanted to tell him something. All of these things made him uncertain and confused about what he saw before his eyes. There's a veil covering Dark Mountain and everything that happened in the void in the crack. Perhaps when I have the power to lift that veil, I'll discover a secret surrounding me, Su Ming thought quietly. Only by thinking this way could he prevent himself from losing himself in his bewilderment and avoid the fear of his mind breaking down due to his doubts towards the future or the past. How can I increase my level of cultivation quickly? Su Ming opened his eyes and looked at Tianxie Zi beside him. Your senior brother asked me this question in the past. My answer was to clear my mind. He thought about it for a long time, and in the end, he decided to isolate himself for a long time. Tianxie Zi looked at Su Ming profoundly. He paused for a moment before he continued speaking. Your second senior brother also asked me this question in the past. My answer was to clear my mind as well. His choice was different from your eldest senior brother's. He chose to plant flowers and plants. As for your third senior brother, he's an idiot. He didn't ask me this question, but he drank all day and spent his days in a drunken stupor to search for his heart. As for you, my answer is still the same. Clear my mind. Tianxie Zi smiled faintly and lifted his right hand to point forward. The berserker vessels in the first layer of the chamber disappointed you, didn't you? You see them as broken and useless items. It's just like the wine you drank from the gourd. To you, it's water, but to me, it's wine. It's the same logic. To me, the things in the first layer of the chamber are the things I've collected throughout my life. To me, they're the most precious, enchanted vessels. There's also all the skills and divine abilities of Freezing Sky Clan in the second layer of the chamber. They must have disappointed you. You couldn't see what was inside. There was a ghost of a smile on Tianxie Zi's lips as he looked at Su Ming. Su Ming remained silent. He did not speak. You still don't truly understand what we berserkers practice. The word creation means that we will not be bound by anything. We will rely on ourselves to create everything. Those so-called skills and divine abilities were all created by our predecessors. There are 100,000 berserkers in Freezing Sky Clan, and there are as many powerful berserkers as there are clouds in the sky. But are these people practicing creation? Do they understand the meaning of creation? Tianxie Zi's disciple will not have any skills or divine abilities. What you will have is the serendipity of the world that you came to understand after you found a way to clear your mind. A strange light seemed to appear on Tianxie Zi's face. Under that light, he looked as if he was filled with determination. However, to Su Ming, that determination seemed to be bordering on madness. Serendipity, serendipity, everyone in the world desires these two words. They are all searching for them. But what is true serendipity? This is a question I'm asking you. Think about it, understand it. Once you find the answer, tell me. Tianxie Zi's enigmatic look returned to him. He stroked his beard and spoke languidly, as if he was a wise elder. Can I take this map with me? Su Ming stood up quietly and folded up the bee skin scroll before him carefully. As my disciple, you can take one item from each layer. Tianxie Zi smiled faintly. Su Ming put the beast skin scroll into his bosom and looked at Tianxie Zi. He took a deep breath and wrapped his fist in his palm to bow towards him. Greetings, Master. I am your disciple. Tianxie Zi laughed heartily and waved his arm. Immediately, a gust of wind blew past and swept Su Ming out of the cave abode. Your senior brothers are eccentric. You should get in touch with them more and search for a way to clear your mind. I believe you'll be able to find it. The recommendation tickets were terrible. Could it be that the recommendation tickets for Devil Seekers could only be like this? To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 226. Su Ming stood alone at the top of the ninth summit. Ever since Tian Xie swept him out of the cave abode, he was the only one left in the place. Tian Xie was nowhere to be found. Freezing Sky Clan's ninth summit. Home, huh? Su Ming looked at the world in the distance. It was all white, and a mixture of familiarity and unfamiliarity rose in his heart. The familiarity was due to the snow, but the unfamiliarity was due to the world. Snowflakes danced around him. As he looked at the snow, Su Ming lowered his head and walked down the stairs filled with plants. Since I'm here, I'll have to find a cave abode to stay in. As Su Ming continued walking, he looked around. Wherever he looked, there were plants that could grow in the snow. They were so dense that they covered most of the mountain. Second senior brother is very hardworking. He believes that he can do better. His third senior brother's words echoed in Su Ming's ears unknowingly. He walked for a long time, and gradually he gained a deeper understanding of those words. When night fell and the sky gradually turned completely dark, Su Ming found a spot without any plants at the mountainside of the ninth summit, which was a rare sight. It was slightly far away from the stairs leading up to the mountain. There was a big rock protruding out of the ground, forming a small platform. As he stood on the platform, the moaning cold wind whistled past his ears. Su Ming lifted his right hand, and immediately green light shone at the center of his brows. The small virescent sword flew out and circled around him a few times before charging towards the wall of the ninth summit. Banging sounds reverberated in the air. As the small sword pierced through the stone wall, a simple cave abode was gradually carved out by Su Ming. The ice and stones in this place were incredibly sturdy. Su Ming had spent quite a bit of effort just to create this simple cave abode. When the moon hung high in the sky, the cave abode was finally completed. Su Ming put away the small sword and looked at the cave abode that did not even have a door. He shook his head and walked in. There was only one room in the cave abode. Su Ming walked to the end and swept his gaze across the area. The walls of the cave were cold, causing the interior of the cave to also be cold. Su Ming sat down quietly and brought out the beast skin map from his bosom. He lowered his head and looked at it for a while before sighing. Cultivation base. Master is right. If I want to walk out of the land of South Morning, I'll need to rely on my powerful cultivation base. I have to find a way to clear my mind and understand the true meaning of creation. Su Ming put away the beast skin map and sat down with a contemplative look on his face. Time trickled by. It was Su Ming's first night in the ninth summit of Freezing Sky Clan. He spent most of the night thinking about Tian Xie's words in the simple cave abode, accompanied by the moaning cold wind outside. Besides the sound of the wind, Freezing Sky Clan was quiet at night. It was especially so for the ninth summit. Since there were simply too few people living there, it was even quieter. The moonlight shone softly outside, giving off a cold feeling in the ice and snow. When it was almost daybreak, Su Ming woke up from his meditative state. He frowned, not quite sure what clearing his mind meant. Calm my heart, but I feel that I should have achieved this. I have already calmed down. But how would doing this help my cultivation? What does the enlightenment that Master spoke of represent? Su Ming thought about it for a long time, but he still felt that it was a little unclear. He lifted his head and looked at the faint light in the sky outside the cave abode. He got up and walked out. The moment Su Ming walked out of the unfamiliar land and unfamiliar mountain, a cold gust of wind blew against his face. Some snow fell on his face, but he did not mind the cold from the snow. The sky was slightly brighter. The darkness around him had mostly dissipated, and he could roughly see the outline of the place. Su Ming walked forward casually. As he stepped on the snow, it let out crunching sounds. That sound came with a rhythm as he walked, and it slowly made Su Ming's puzzled mind become much more at ease. Clear my mind. Could it be training my mind? Su Ming seemed to have figured something out. He had no idea how much time had passed. As Su Ming continued walking, he suddenly came to a halt. A fierce look appeared in his eyes, but he soon relaxed and looked forward with an odd expression. Before him, he saw a person crouching behind a big rock with a pot of wine in his hands. As he drank, he carefully poked his head out of the rock and looked outwards. From where Su Ming stood, he could only see the person's back. He could not see what the person was looking at so cautiously behind the rock. Third senior brother. Su Ming's expression became even stranger. He could not understand why the man who always called himself Grandpa, who was crouching there. Shoo! Third senior brother had clearly noticed Su Ming. He quickly turned his head around and placed his index finger by his lips. He winked at Su Ming, signaling him not to make a sound, then waved at him. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he walked forward cautiously. When he saw his third senior brother, who called himself Grandpa, who, being so cautious and even a hint of nervousness on his face, Su Ming could not help but be wary. He bent down and approached him slowly. When he saw Su Ming's actions, praise appeared on the man's face. When Su Ming got closer, he grabbed Su Ming's arm and pulled him to his side before he spoke in a low voice. "Don't talk. Let me tell you, your grandpa who is the smartest because I like to think," third senior brother whispered with a smug look on his face. "Not only do I like to think, I also like to observe. Forget the ninth summit. Even the other mountains have targets that I observe. I think, I observe, that's why I'm getting smarter." "What did you see just now?" "It was second senior brother, right?" "But let me tell you, what you saw was second senior brother, but it was also not second senior brother." "Haha. Second senior brother talks about how someone steals his plants every night and even suspects that I'm the one who did it, but I won't tell him. Every single time, I see him stealing his plants at night," third senior brother said to Su Ming, feeling even more pleased with himself. Su Ming felt a slight headache coming on. He rubbed the center of his brows and was just about to get up and leave. Second senior brother has become stupid from farming. He's not the same person at night, and he's not the same person during the day. Don't you think he's tired? During the day, he plants, and at night, he steals. He even looks for himself often, but I won't tell him. Third senior brother grinned and took another big swig from his pot of wine. Su Ming smiled wryly as he looked at his third senior brother. He finally knew what his third senior brother's strange hobby was. His strange hobby was not drinking, but observing and thinking. "This wine is getting a little cold. We've been here for too long. The wine doesn't taste good anymore," third senior brother mumbled under his breath and stood up. He swept his gaze past Su Ming. "Youngest junior brother, your senior brother Tiger is happy today. How about I take you to meet our eldest senior brother?" Our eldest senior brother is also a strange person. He's such an idiot. He isolates himself every day like a turtle and doesn't even feel tired. If you ask me, life should be like this. Think more, observe more, drink more, dream more, but I heard the old man say something when he lent me wine in the past. Eldest senior brother seems to be different from us. He's lucky. He was the first to follow the old man, and I heard that he obtained a real skill. It's even the most mysterious skill in Freezing Sky Clan. Third senior brother pursed his lips and mumbled with drunken eyes. Su Ming was originally about to leave, but when he heard those words, his heart suddenly trembled. A bright light appeared in his eyes, and he seemed to have caught onto something from his third senior brother's words. He was originally about to lift his foot, but he froze in his tracks once again. He lowered his head and looked at his drunken third senior brother, who was smiling foolishly at him. Gradually, he found himself unable to tell whether this person was truly drunk or just trying to tell him something. "Are you going or not? If you're not going, then I'll go by myself." Third senior brother rubbed his eyes and yawned. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 227. Go! Su Ming nodded. Third senior brother's spirits were instantly lifted. He picked up the gourd and lifted his head to look at the sky. He mumbled a few words that Su Ming could not hear. then lifted his hand as if he was calculating something with his fingers. After a moment, a silly smile appeared on his face. It's done. You're lucky. You can go see eldest senior brother today. Let's go. Follow me. As third senior brother spoke, he charged into the distance. Su Ming did not make a sound and followed behind him. As he looked at his third senior brother's back, he gradually found himself unable to understand it. The two of them charged through the mountain as the sun rose in the sky. Before long, they arrived at a mountain rock that looked rather damaged. Over there, Su Ming saw a small, low cave that was mostly covered by a large rock, causing not much sunlight to shine in even if it was daytime. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he asked, "Eldest senior brother isolates himself here? Eldest senior brother can't possibly enjoy life like this. This is your senior brother whose cave abode. What do you think? It looks really grand, doesn't it? Wait here, I'll go get some wine." As third senior brother spoke, he lowered his body and entered the small cave. Su Ming was momentarily stunned, and his previous guess was shaken. Very soon, third senior brother walked out. There was still some wine spilled on the pot of wine in his hand. It was obvious that he had just refilled it. As he lifted the big gourd, excitement appeared on his face. "Let's go. We have to hurry, or else we won't make it." As he spoke, third senior brother charged forward. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he followed behind him. The two of them charged towards the foot of the mountain. After about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the man called Hu Zi brought Su Ming to the foot of the mountain. After making a few turns, they arrived at a crack in the mountain. The moment they stepped in, Su Ming immediately felt a wave of cold air crashing into his face. By the looks of his third senior brother's actions, it was clear that he was incredibly familiar with this place. They walked for half a day in the crack and gradually went deeper underground. There were many times when they could no longer see the path, as if they had reached the end, but as Hu Zi continued walking, a new path would appear. Even Su Ming started feeling dizzy as he moved around in circles in the layer of ice. At that moment, his third senior brother came to a halt and brought Su Ming to a basin that was not too big. Looking up, the basin in front of him was like a huge hole. It was pitch black and emitted waves of bone-piercing coldness. There were also countless icicles hanging down from the sides, giving off a cold feeling. "We're here. Eldest senior brother is down there, but it's too deep down there, so we won't be going in. We'll just watch from here." Third senior brother turned his head around and looked at Su Ming, then pointed at the basin before them. Su Ming took a few steps forward and looked down the basin. With his level of cultivation and eyesight, he could not see the end of the basin. Third senior brother put down the gourd in his hand and stood at the side. He raised his right hand and counted his fingers one by one, as if he was counting the time. There's still the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn. Youngest junior brother, just wait. Yet before he could finish speaking, a roar that sounded like a low growl suddenly came from within the basin. That roar rumbled, causing the layer of ice outside the basin to tremble furiously. Su Ming's expression changed. He could clearly feel a wave of heat suddenly erupting from the layer of ice that should not have existed. He immediately took a few steps back. That wave of heat came crashing towards him with a bang, and a wave of hot air surged out from the bottom of the basin with a bang. That wave of heat gave off a feeling that even their bodies would be scorched, but strangely, the basin and the layer of ice around it were only slowly melting under that wave of heat. This clearly did not make sense appeared before Su Ming's eyes, and it made his heart tremble. He sucked in a deep breath. Darn it, why did eldest senior brother start his breathing earlier this time? Eldest senior brother, Hu Zi, is here, and he even brought the youngest junior brother that the old man just took in. For our youngest junior brother's sake, you have to help me warm my wine this time. I'm telling you, eldest senior brother, if you break my wine gourd again and embarrass me in front of our youngest junior brother, then I'll never come see you again. As third senior brother spoke, he quickly threw the wine gourd by his side into the basin. The wine gourd was hit by the wave of heat that erupted from within the basin and did not fall. Instead, it floated in midair. However, cracking sounds rang in the air, and cracks immediately appeared on the wine gourd. Some wine spilled out from the cracks and fell into the basin. Eldest senior brother, Uzi let out a shrill scream of pain, and his expression changed. A cold harumph came from within the basin, and the numerous cracks in the wine gourd were immediately covered by a layer of ice, causing the wine in the gourd to stop flowing out. At the same time, a wave of hot air spread out from the open lid of the gourd. It was a thick wine fragrance that filled the area, causing all those who took a whiff of it to feel warm. There was a layer of frost outside the gourd, but within the gourd, the wine instantly boiled and turned into wine vapor. Half of it dissipated. "That's enough. Eldest senior brother, that's enough." Uzi's expression changed very quickly. One breath ago, he was in a miserable state, but in the next, he was beaming with joy. "Third, can you not do this next time? Every single time you leave, I have to change the path rune outside, but you always manage to sneak in." The wine gourd covered in frost floated towards Uzi and landed before him. At the same time, a resigned voice came from within the basin. That voice was very gentle, but the instant it fell into Su Ming's ears, he first felt a chill run down his spine. Then, that chill turned into warmth that filled his entire body. "You're the only one who could think of using the origin aura I gained after so much trouble to warm wine. Ah, remember to send half a pot to Master, or else I won't warm it for you next time." The resignation in that voice made Su Ming think that his third senior brother was going a little overboard. "Eldest senior brother, don't worry. I'll definitely send half a pot to the old man." Haha. Uzi's face was filled with excitement. He quickly picked up the wine gourd and took a sniff of the wine within. An intoxicated look appeared on his face. "Fourth, you just came up the mountain. It's a pity I can't come out of isolation. I'll have to wait for a few years. How about this? I'll give this to you. Use it to protect yourself." That gentle voice appeared once again, and soon after, a piece of blue ice flew out of the basin and charged towards Su Ming, floating before him. Within that blue ice was a layer of blue fire that exuded an enchanting air. "Thank you, eldest senior brother." Su Ming quickly wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed, then put away the blue ice. With just one glance, he could tell that this was no ordinary item. "Eldest senior brother, hurry up and train. I've made my calculations. In another 43 days, it'll be time for you to breathe in and out your origin aura again. At that time, I'll come and find you again. We won't bother you anymore. Eldest senior brother, good luck." Uzi lifted the wine gourd and dragged Su Ming a few steps backwards before he shouted towards the basin. The heat spreading out from the basin clearly froze for a moment. Then a resigned sigh came from within the basin. "Don't always get drunk. Remember what Master told you in the past. Getting drunk might be the method you found to clear your mind, but that's just the process. What's important is your dreams after you get drunk." The gentle voice echoed in the air. I know. We'll be leaving first." Uzi quickly left, but Su Ming's footsteps came to a halt, and he looked towards the heat spreading out from the basin. "Eldest senior brother, what skill are you practicing? Did you really see the arts and divine abilities on the jade stones in Master's chamber in the second layer?" After a short period of silence, the gentle voice came from within the basin. "You won't be able to see what I saw, because in my heart, what I desire the most are skills." Eldest senior brother's voice echoed in the air, just like how Su Ming's heart was buzzing. When he was dragged out of his eldest senior brother's isolation grounds by Uzi and arrived at the foot of the 9th summit, a huge storm raged in his head. He wasn't sure how he had left, but his mind was still shaken. He parted ways with third elder brother and returned to his immortal's cave. He sat down cross-legged on the balcony, looking off into the distance. However, what he saw wasn't important. He couldn't calm his mind. Eldest senior brother thirsted for the cultivation technique. So when he entered the second level, he saw that the jade stones were real. He obtained the cultivation technique he wanted, and then went into seclusion to cultivate his heart, slowly strengthening himself. And because I care about the map the most, that's why the Berserker vessels in the first layer, the skills in the second layer, and even the ancient scrolls in the third layer are all illusions. Only the map is something I can see. Eldest senior brother isolated himself to train his mind and understand the word creation. Perhaps his skills are only a part of it. Only by creating will he be able to fulfill the true meaning of creation. He didn't know what second senior brother had obtained from Master's secret chamber. He had chosen to plant those flowers and plants because personally planting them represented a kind of creation, creating life, using this method to cultivate the mind, to comprehend. As for third senior brother, he fell asleep after he was drunk. Being drunk is just a process, and when he falls asleep, he dreams. That's the start of training his mind. Dreaming is also a form of creating dreams. Su-Ming understood now. He shuddered. At that moment, he was looking into the distance at the beginning of the world. The sun rose, and its rays shone down on the land with an indescribable shock. The speed of the wind was not fast either. It lifted Su-Ming's hair, and under the sunlight, it looked as if there were many colors in his hair. Su-Ming turned his head around slowly and looked at the summit illuminated by the sun. He could vaguely see an old person standing there. That person was looking at the rising sun in the distance, and his robes fluttered in the wind. "Master," Su-Ming mumbled, "become my disciple. One day, you'll understand that freezing Sky Clan is nothing." The words Tian Xiezi had told him that day appeared in Su-Ming's head. Su-Ming closed his eyes and immersed himself in an epiphany. Time passed by slowly. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Su-Ming sat there as the sun rose and set, the cold wind blew, and the white snow fell. He did not move. My fellow Taoists, it's been 7 consecutive days since the 3rd chapter was updated. Now, I only owe 4,000 words for this month. My promise is like a mountain, and I'm about to fulfill it. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 228. In this slightly unfamiliar state, Su-Ming forgot about the flow of time. His eyes were closed, and he looked as if he had lost his soul. It was as if his soul had left his body and fused with the world. There was no world in his world. There was only chaos that surrounded him like fog, causing him to be unable to see clearly. However, his heart was very calm. It was so quiet that even his heartbeats had become weaker. Snow fell on his hair and clothes. More and more snow slowly accumulated, causing Su-Ming to look like a snowman from the distance. 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, the sun rose and set multiple times. Sunlight and moonlight intersected and fell on Su-Ming's body, reflecting different rays of light. His body still did not move. At that moment, Su-Ming did not know that the person he saw a few days ago, when he entered this state, had never left the top of the 9th summit. Tian Xiezi stood at the top of the mountain quietly. His gaze was fixed on Su-Ming sitting there. He had spent several days with Su-Ming, and he would continue doing so. Only when Su-Ming woke up would he, as his master, leave, because he knew that this was an incredibly important process and metamorphosis in his disciple's life. This was an epiphany. Every single one of my disciples will have their first epiphany at different times after they entered the mountain. Tian Xiezi mumbled as he looked at Su-Ming, who was standing in the distance. When his eldest disciple had his epiphany, he had been watching. When his second disciple had his epiphany, he had also been watching. When his third disciple had his epiphany, he had still been watching quietly. Now he was standing there, just like the other 3 times, watching Su-Ming gain his epiphany. During this process, he would not allow anyone to disturb him. He was their master. He had to extend his arms and protect them with his chest when they were weak. I'm looking forward to what sort of method you'll come up with to clear your mind. An amiable smile appeared on Tian Xiezi's face, and within that smile was hope. He would never forget how this disciple he took and had cried when he saw the beast skin map in the chamber a few days ago. It was just like when he took in his eldest, second, and third disciples in the past. At that moment, when Su-Ming called him master, he had already treated Su-Ming as his disciple. There was no need for time to pass. Sometimes, people only needed a moment to familiarize themselves with each other. Tian Xiezi was watching. His third senior brother, who always liked to call himself Grandpa, who lay in his cave abode on the 9th summit. He held a wine gourd in his hands and drank from it. He was already drunk, but it was difficult for him to sleep. He would occasionally lift his head. His gaze might have been blocked by the cave walls, but if there were no walls, he would have been able to see clearly that he was looking at the platform where Su Ming was sitting. I have a tough life. Well, he's my youngest junior brother. I can't help it. I can't help it. But when I go out to fight in the future, it's not bad. Not bad at all. Third senior brother mumbled and grinned. That grin was incredibly smug. Haha, I'm still the smart one. Youngest junior brother even gained an epiphany when I inadvertently gave him pointers. Let's see what method he'll come up with. No, if he manages to come up with an epiphany and isolate himself like eldest senior brother, then I'll be lonely again. Even if he manages to come up with an eccentric hobby like second senior brother and likes to take care of plants, it's not good. Drinking. It'll be best if he manages to come up with an epiphany. At that time, I'll have someone to drink with me. The man scratched his head and nervousness appeared on his face. At that moment, there was another person on the ninth summit. He was crouching down in the middle of a large patch of plants at the mountainside. He was rummaging through some of the frozen soil and planting the seeds of some plants. That man was dressed in white and had a handsome face. His eyes were bright, and there was always a smile on his face. Occasionally, he would lift his head and look at the spot where Su Ming was sitting, and his smile would widen. Youngest junior brother, good luck. Whether you can become a member of the ninth summit or not will depend on whether you can come up with an epiphany. That man was second senior brother. He did not sleep during the day. In fact, he had not slept for the past few days. Instead, he acted out of character and would occasionally look at the spot where Su Ming was as he took care of the plants. At the foot of the ninth summit was a pair of gentle eyes looking at Su Ming. It was the spot where eldest senior brother isolated himself at the bottom of the mountain along the crack in the ice. That person seemed to be looking at Su Ming, and there was an expectant look in that gaze. Su Ming sat there quietly. His world was still covered in fog. He could not see anything. The only thing he could see was the fog floating in the air. He did not know how much time had passed. Perhaps it was a few breaths, perhaps it was several days, perhaps it was even longer. He did not think about it in detail. He only looked at the fog. He could vaguely see a figure in the fog. It was indistinct, and he seemed to be sitting cross-legged. Cold air gradually filled the area around him, but there was a wave of heat within that cold air. This was the image of his eldest senior brother that Su Ming had formed in his mind. By isolating himself, locking down his body, and focusing his mind, he can reach a state of calmness, understanding his cultivation methods, and creating his own path. This is eldest senior brother, Su Ming mumbled. This was the image of his eldest senior brother in his mind. I can do this as well, but because I saw it, if I chose to do it, then I would not be creating. I would be walking on someone else's path and walking behind eldest senior brother. Su Ming remained silent for a long time before he shook his head slowly. Slowly, a new picture appeared in the fog before Su Ming's eyes. Speaking of which, only he could see this picture. If there was anyone else in his world at that moment, then they would only be able to see the fog. They would not be able to see anything else. He might have said that it was fog, but in truth, it was Su Ming's thoughts. In a new picture, Su Ming saw his second senior brother. He saw the flowers and plants in the ninth summit, and he saw a power that could create life. Since I can reach the pinnacle of the flowers and plants, I can reach the pinnacle of the heart. The life force of the flowers and plants is given to me by the world, but has gone through second senior brother's hands. This is a form of creation. Second senior brother seems to have changed into another person at night. He takes away the flowers and plants he planted. This is because the life force of the flowers and plants is created by his hands, but it can also be destroyed by his hands. Su Ming shuddered. In his state of epiphany, he suddenly understood some of his second senior brother's actions. Perhaps these were not correct, but they were what Su Ming had come to understand at that moment. This sort of creation has already reached an incredibly profound state, second senior brother. Su Ming mumbled. He remained silent for a moment, but still chose to shake his head. This sort of path isn't suitable for me to answer Master's question. What is creation? Su Ming looked at the fog. In truth, he already had an answer to Tian Xiazi's question, but he could only keep it in his heart. He could not say it out loud, because if he did, he would be wrong. Eldest senior brother's answer should be that I am creation. Second senior brother's answer is the same. Third senior brother's words might be slightly different, but the meaning should be the same. They can answer this way because they found their own way to clear their minds and found their own creation. I can't say it because I haven't found it yet. If I imitate second senior brother's path, then I'll never be able to say these words unless one day I walk down my own path. Su Ming shook his head. The fog before him changed once again. This time, in a picture that no one else could see, third senior brother, who called himself Grandpa, who was drunk and lying on the ground while drinking. There was a silly smile on his lips, and there was even drool trickling down the corners of his mouth. Su Ming could even hear faint snores. It was as if there was a world in his dreams that made him happy. In that world, there seemed to be an endless amount of people drinking with him and an endless amount of people waiting for him to beat them up. That happy look on his face made Su Ming laugh uncontrollably. He could already imagine that perhaps his third senior brother's epiphany was the easiest and the simplest. In fact, there was a high possibility that his third senior brother had never gained any epiphany. He had just fallen asleep after getting drunk and had a dream. From then on, he naturally obtained his own method to clear his mind. If there comes a day when third senior brother's dreams come true, then his achievements will not be any weaker than second senior brother's. As for eldest senior brother, I still can't see through his path. In the end, Su Ming still chose to shake his head. He would not walk down his third senior brother's path either. I wonder what his master's epiphany. Su Ming had no clue, and neither did he think too much about it. Gradually, the fog before his eyes started changing violently. Their changes meant that Su Ming was thinking. He was thinking about his own epiphany and his own method to clear his mind. Days passed by just like that. Very soon, it was the 27th day since Su Ming sat down on the platform. During these 27 days, snow would occasionally fall, but the snow was very light. Yet even so, it still made Su Ming and his body feel as if they were connected together with the snow and wind. When the night of the 27th day passed and the morning of the 28th day arrived, a huge snowstorm accompanied the morning sun. Blizzards were not rare in Freezing Sky Clan. They would occasionally appear, and now it was the time for a blizzard to arrive. The moaning and howling wind shook the sky, sweeping up a large amount of snow that looked as if it wanted to cover the entire world. It was as if an ancient giant beast had lifted its claws and slammed them on the ground. As the blizzard howled, a person gradually walked towards the foot of the 9th summit from the distance. That person wore a thick bamboo hat that covered his entire body. As he walked in the blizzard, a shocking presence spread out from his body, causing the snow and wind to seem as if they did not dare to get close to him. Instead, they fell backwards around him, causing him to look like an earth dragon from the distance as he walked towards them. Su Ming. That person's voice was cold, and he spoke in a ghastly voice at the foot of the 9th summit. It's the last few hours. Please get me monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 229. There are quite a lot of rumors about the 9th summit in Freezing Sky Clan. Today, we'll see which one of them is true. The person in the straw hat spoke with a cold sneer as he stood at the foot of the 9th summit. I just can't understand why junior brother Sima would pay so much attention to this Su Ming who doesn't even have a shocking reputation. He even sent a letter from a million lease and used the favor I owe him to have me come here to take away something from him. The person took a step towards the 9th summit in the blizzard. It was as if he had fused together with the blizzard around him. The incoming blizzard in the sky turned into a human face that roared ferociously at the 9th summit. That roar was the wind, and it caused the blizzard to howl. The moment that person stepped on the mountain, the entire 9th summit seemed to tremble. His third senior brother, who was drinking in his cave abode, opened his eyes swiftly, and surprise appeared in his eyes. He took a few brisk steps forward, bent his back, and walked out of his cave abode to look down the mountain. It's Ziche from the second summit. He's ranked 9th on the Great Frozen Plains of Freezing Sky Clan's ranking board. Why did he suddenly come to the 9th summit? Is he here to cause trouble for me? But your grandpa who didn't offend him. Huzi was momentarily stunned before he scratched his head. In the midst of his surprise, his expression changed abruptly, because at that moment, Ziche, who was wearing the straw cape and straw hat, took his second step once he stepped onto the 9th summit. The instant his second step landed, he appeared before Huzi in a shocking manner. His appearance was incredibly sudden, as if he had forced his way through the crowd. When he stood hundreds of feet away from Huzi, a monstrous presence erupted forth with a bang. Under that presence, Huzi was forced to take a few steps back. Even the wine gourd in his hand exploded with a bang. Trash! Ziche wore a straw cape and a bamboo hat. His face could not be seen, but a chilling glare shone in his eyes. The presence on his body was shocking, and it even caused the ice around him to show signs of cracking. The ferocious human face formed by the blizzard behind him roared, and more snow gathered in the sky, as if it wanted to drown the 9th summit. He cast Huzi a cold glance, and, as he spoke slowly, he took his third step forward. With that third step, he vanished from Huzi's field of vision. As he left, he didn't notice that Huzi was currently staring blankly at the collapsed alcohol gourd, his eyes bloodshot and ferocious. How dare you break Grandpa, Hu's gourd? Huzi lifted his head swiftly and roared towards the sky. He turned into a long arc and chased after Ziche. At that moment, two people charged out from the 7th summit beyond the 9th summit. Both of them were women, and they were beautiful. One of them was Han Songzi. With anxiety on her face, she charged towards the 9th summit at full speed. The woman beside her was dressed in a beautiful yellow robe. Her oval-shaped face gave off an elegant and beautiful temperament, which was similar to Han Songzi's usual appearance. There was a rather lackadaisical look on her face, and when she saw Han Songzi's nervousness and anxiety, she teased her, "Junior Sister Fong, just what sort of person is this Su Ming? Why are you so concerned about him? Could it be?" The woman's voice was very pleasant to the ears, and as she spoke, she laughed. "Senior sister, we're already in a situation like this, and you're still saying that." Han Songzi was incredibly quick as she closed in on the 9th summit. All right, I won't talk about it anymore. Don't worry, Ziche might be wild and untamed, but he's not a bad person. I'll just make sure he doesn't cause trouble for Su Ming anymore. He's your little brother. Of course you'll be on his side." There was a hint of complaint in Han Songzi's words. The woman behind her smiled faintly, not minding it, and instead comforted her with a few gentle words. As the two of them spoke, they slowly closed in on the 9th summit. However, the moment they got closer, they could clearly feel the power of a blizzard charging towards them, causing them to slow down. At that moment, they also saw the ferocious human face formed by the blizzard roaring at the 9th summit from where they were previously. It was blocked by the 9th summit. Han Songzi's expression immediately changed. The woman by her side also had a grave expression on her face. "He's casting the art of his berserker mark." The woman took a step forward and quickly closed in on the 9th summit against the blizzard. Han Songzi bit her bottom lip and followed behind her anxiously. When Ziche, who was wearing a straw cape and a bamboo hat, took his third step on the 9th summit, he was already standing 300 feet away from where Su Ming was meditating. He stood there with an aloof expression on his face, and his gaze fell on Su Ming. Another piece of trash. This 9th summit is nothing more than this, Ziche said coldly and lifted his right hand, just as he was about to point at Su Ming. At that moment, Su Ming was completely oblivious to what was happening in the world around him. He was immersed in his own world. The fog he saw tumbling about furiously, and he seemed to be able to see something within it. An epiphany gradually appeared in his heart. "Look a little more clearly," Su Ming mumbled. He had a strong feeling that if he could see a little more clearly, then he would be able to find the right to answer the question of what was creation. As Ziche lifted his right hand, the world around the platform, Su Ming was sitting on rumbled. The ferocious human face formed by the gigantic blizzard appeared in the world outside, Su Ming, and was rapidly closing in on him. The gigantic human face in the blizzard brought with it a presence that shook the sky and earth. Not only did it want to drown Su Ming, it also wanted to drown the entire ninth summit. In fact, this scene would even give people the misconception that the blizzard this time was caused by the weather or by someone using a divine ability. If Su Ming had not joined the ninth summit and was one of the other summits, a true disciple of Freezing Sky Clan, then Ziche would not have been able to attack. After all, they were fellow disciples, and due to the strict rules of the school, he would not be able to attack during the day. However, Su Ming had joined the ninth summit. It was a summit that belonged to Freezing Sky Clan, but also not Freezing Sky Clan. The disciples in the mountain did not have to follow the rules of Freezing Sky Clan, but they were also not protected by the rules of the school. That was why when Ziche thought of taking the item, he did not bother with words. He just killed Su Ming and threw his corpse to see Ma Xian, who was rushing back to Freezing Sky Clan. In his opinion, the person who always called himself Grandpa, who was a piece of trash and was not worth mentioning. As for the person who liked to plant plants, he was like a woman to him, incredibly weak. Even the so-called head disciple of the ninth summit was just a coward who liked to isolate himself for training. In the past, he had heard that when the disciple from the other summits came to cause trouble for that piece of trash who called himself Grandpa, his two senior brothers had never attacked him. It was especially so for that piece of trash who liked to plant plants. He had even pretended to sleep and avoided them, allowing his junior brother to fight alone. There was even one time when he passed by the ninth summit and saw this scene with his own eyes. His heart was filled with disdain towards the ninth summit. There was only one person he cared about, and that was the old man from the ninth summit, Tian Xiezi. However, he was already prepared when he came here. He was the prodigy of the second summit and was highly regarded by his master. He knew that if Tian Xiezi attacked him without caring about their seniority, then his master would definitely not let the matter rest. With these preparations, he believed that he would not run into any trouble on this trip. He had already lifted his right hand and was just about to point at Su Ming so that the human face in the blizzard would devour him to complete his goal. Yet the moment he lifted his right hand and was about to put it down, a gentle voice came from behind him. That voice was very calm, as if it was a conversation between friends. There was not a hint of anger contained in that voice. "Brother, you've stepped on my flowers and plants. That's not good." At the instant that voice appeared, Ziche suddenly shuddered. A solemn look instantly appeared in his eyes under the bamboo hat. He knew that with his level of cultivation, if a person appeared around him, he would immediately notice it. It was especially so in the ninth summit. Only Tian Xiezi alone could do something like this, but based on the person's words, it was clear that he was not Tian Xiezi. "There's only a layer of ice under my feet. There are no plants." Ziche let out a cold harumph. He did not turn his head back and spoke coldly, but he did not point at Su Ming with his right hand again. "Look again." That gentle voice came closer, and a handsome man in white gradually walked out from behind Ziche. There was a smile on that man's face, and his expression was very gentle. He walked to Ziche's side, walked past him, and stood before Su Ming, who was still sitting cross-legged. Ziche was silent. He did not lower his head, but he could feel that the moment the man walked past him, a patch of green plants had indeed appeared under his feet, and he was standing right in the middle of those plants. A wave of shock rose in his heart. He looked at the gentleman before him. He had seen this person before, and he also knew that this person was the second disciple of the ninth summit. Yet he did not expect that this person, who he thought was a piece of trash, would make his heart tremble. A sense of danger, which was rarely seen on him, rose abruptly within him. Ziche fell silent. After a moment, he let out a cold harumph and lifted his right foot to take a swift step forward. Without any hesitation, he lifted his right hand and pointed towards the man who was blocking Su Ming's way. Yet the moment his right hand pointed forward, the bamboo hat on his head shattered abruptly and turned into countless shards that tumbled backwards, revealing the face of a young man in his 30s with long hair. The straw cape he wore exploded with a bang at that moment, turning into shreds, revealing the black robes beneath the straw cape. A mouthful of blood flowed out from the corner of Ziche's mouth. His body trembled violently, and a pressure that shocked him spread out from the smiling man before him like a spring breeze. No one else could sense that pressure, and in Ziche's eyes, it might not even be pressure at all. It was a pressure brought about by a gaze. It was a presence that formed a terror that made Ziche's skin crawl. He could not describe it with words, but it made his skin crawl. That terror came from the hands of the young man before him. That pair of normal hands, those hands that were not lifted but placed by the corners of his robes, seemed to be able to control Ziche's life and death. It was a pair of creation's hands. I have to go to my father-in-law's place. There's still one more chapter I'll write there, and it will be released before midnight. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Starting Point and vote for it. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 2:30. Ziche shuddered, and shock appeared on his face. His face instantly turned pale, and he instinctively staggered a few steps backwards. Once he coughed out a mouthful of blood, he quickly retreated and rose into the air, intending to leave the mountain. His heart raced against his chest, and fear replaced all of his thoughts. He had never expected that there would be such a terrifying person in the 9th summit of Freezing Sky Clan. Those terrifying hands, those hands that seemed to hold life and death in their hands, those hands that caused his heart to tremble, and those hands that heavily injured him the moment he attacked. Are you going to leave just like that? The white-robed second senior brother continued smiling as he looked at Ziche. His smile was very gentle, and there was no hint of joy or anger in it. However, the moment his words traveled through the air, all the plants on the 9th summit shuddered simultaneously. I didn't attack you before because you never touched the bottom line of the 9th summit. I don't care if Z gets beaten up. He's tough, so he'll be fine after taking a few more hits. As second senior brother spoke with a smile, all the plants on the 9th summit shuddered, and a shocking presence erupted forth with a bang. That presence contained an endless amount of life force, and it came from all the plants on the mountain releasing their presence at the same time. Ziche's expression changed drastically. As he retreated, he groaned in his heart. In his eyes, all the other people on the 9th summit were trash, but the man before him was not. He was so terrifying that he was like a monster. With just a single movement of his presence, he attracted all the plants. This isn't a normal berserker art. This is... Ziche sucked in a sharp breath. As he retreated, the gigantic human face formed by the blizzard manifested behind him and let out a faint growl at second senior brother. But this time, you destroyed a lot of my plants, broke Z's gourd, and even injured my youngest junior brother. This isn't good. Second senior brother sighed softly. At the instant he said the word not good, all the plants in the 9th summit rose into the air, and with an indescribable speed, they covered the sky and earth and charged towards Ziche in a manner that could not be described with words. Ziche's expression was filled with shock. The snow wind face behind him immediately enveloped him. As he retreated, he wanted to resist, but the instant the snow wind face touched the countless flowers and plants, it exploded with a bang. When it exploded, the world roared and turned into countless snowflakes that fell from the sky. At the same time, Ziche coughed up blood again. His face instantly turned pale, but before he could retreat again, the flowers and grass charged towards him and instantly surrounded him. Some of them even crawled into his body, causing Ziche to look like a vegetable at that moment. His body trembled, and when he fell, he was once again swept up by the flowers and plants and dragged back to the 9th summit. I won't kill you, but I'll punish you to repair my 3rd junior brother's gourd in the 9th summit. Then, at night, help me take a look at just who is stealing my plants. As for the rest of the time, listen to the people in the mountain, such as taking care of my youngest junior brother's safety when he leaves the mountain. Like this, 3 years is the limit. Second senior brother was still gentle as he said with a smile. At that moment, Huzi rushed out of his cave abode with a furious roar and grabbed Ziche, who was still conscious despite being covered by the flowers and plants. With a ferocious smile, he lifted Che up. "Damn you, how dare you break my gourd? Just you wait and see how I'll teach you a lesson. Damn it, I'll bring you into my dream." Anger appeared in Che's eyes, but he felt as if he had lost all his strength at that moment. Being lifted up by who he had previously regarded as a piece of trash, caused a feeling of humiliation to fill his entire body. At that moment, two long arcs descended from the sky, revealing Han Song-zi and her companion. The two of them stood in midair, stunned for a moment. "We have important guests. Are they here to visit youngest junior brother?" Second senior brother looked at the two beautiful women in the sky, and his smile became even gentler. Songlan greets second senior brother. Fong Songlan was stunned for a moment before she quickly bowed towards second senior brother. The face of the woman beside her was livid with rage. She glared at the gentle second senior brother beside Su Ming, then looked at Che, who was gradually walking into the distance while being lifted up by Zi, but she did not speak. "You're such a beautiful girl. You're rare in the 9th summit. Looks like youngest junior brother is lucky with women. But you came a bad time. He's currently training. Why don't you stay here and help me take care of him?" Second senior brother winked and smiled. His smile immediately made Fong Songlan's face turn red. "It's not like that, it's—" She quickly tried to explain. At that moment, the woman with the oval face glared at second senior brother, let out a cold harumph, then turned around and left. Fong Songlan hesitated for a moment. She looked at Su Ming, who was meditating with his eyes closed, then at her clearly angry senior sister, then put on an apologetic look towards second senior brother. "Since Su Ming isn't in danger, then I'll take my leave first. Second senior brother, please tell him when he wakes up." As Fong Songlan spoke, she saw second senior brother's teasing gaze and her face turned red again. She quickly bade farewell and caught up to her senior sister, looking as if she was explaining something. Second senior brother looked at the two people leaving into the distance and shook his head, then looked at Su Ming. Just as he was about to sigh with emotion, his expression suddenly froze, and he looked towards the world in the distance once again. An old man dressed in a long purplish-red robe was walking towards him calmly in the sky in the distance. He was alone, but as he got closer, the wind around him froze. A wave of pressure spread out and enveloped every single inch of the 9th summit, including the plants and ice mountains. I knew it. Once I hit the young one, the old one appeared. "Master, I can't handle this. You'll have to take action." Second senior brother smiled and sat down beside Su Ming. "Youngest junior brother, you just entered the mountain. How did you manage to provoke someone? Are you going to wake up?" Second senior brother looked at Su Ming with a puzzled look on his face. Suddenly, a smile appeared on his face, and it was filled with anticipation. "Youngest junior brother, I wonder what your method to clear your mind is," second senior brother mumbled. By his side, wisps of fog spread out from Su Ming's body through his fur and gradually enveloped the area. The fog tumbled about in an illusory manner, as if it was about to gradually take form. In Su Ming's mind, the fog that filled the world gradually thinned out, causing his vision to no longer be obstructed by the fog, allowing him to see the world behind it. What he saw behind the mist was not heaven and earth, but rather a painting. Within that painting, mountains and rivers appeared, as well as plants and trees, as well as figures of people. Gradually, a kind of enlightenment appeared in his consciousness. "My answer is that I will create. I am creation," Su Ming mumbled. He had understood. The old man in the long purplish-red robe walked towards them calmly in the sky outside the 9th summit. Neither joy nor anger could be seen in his eyes as he looked at Tian Xie standing at the top of the 9th summit. "Tian Xie, release my disciple." A low voice reverberated in the world. "I don't know any more chapters for this month, but I'm actually feeling a little embarrassed because I'm short of 2,000 words. More accurately speaking, I still owe some. I'll make up for it. I'll definitely make up for it. Everyone can see how hard Air Jen has been working and being serious since he came back this month. I'm indeed trying my best to make up for the chapters 1-0. I'm also trying my best to help my lover take care of the elderly. I'm also trying my best to write the book. I'm really trying my best. I've never asked for monthly votes over the past few days. It would be a lie to say that I'm not anxious when I see my rank dropping from 4th to 6th, but I can't bring myself to use making up for what I owe as a matter of course to explode and ask for monthly votes. Well, I'll leave it at this for May. I won't think about it anymore. I hope that in June, during Air Jin's birthday, my fellow Taoists will be able to give Air Jin a good birthday present so that I can get more monthly votes. I beg for minimum monthly votes for June. To be continued. If you like this work, please come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 231. Previously, Han Song-zi addressed him wrongly. It was a mistake. She should have called second senior brother second Uncle Master. There was a difference in seniority. Call me Uncle Master. You impudent brat. Didn't your master tell you my seniority? Besides the few old men in the sky, who else in Freezing Sky Clan is more senior than me? Even the preceptor has to call me Uncle Master. You're of the same seniority as the preceptor. Don't you know how to address me? You little brat. How dare you offend your elders? Let me see, you've broken the 2nd, 5th, and 7th rules of the school. Tian Xiezi yawned and spoke lazily on the 9th summit of Freezing Sky Clan. There was a lackadaisical tone to his voice. It was not as deep as the purple-red-robed old man's, and it did not travel too far either. The old man in the purplish-red long robe looked as calm as ever as he stood calmly in the air and looked at Tian Xiezi standing at the top of the 9th summit. If he had any choice, he would not have come to the 9th summit. It was not because he respected the rumors about Tian Xiezi, but because Tian Xiezi's status was simply too high. After a moment of silence, he wrapped his fist in his palm towards Tian Xiezi. I am Ting Longzi. Greetings, Uncle Master. That's more like it. When I came up the mountain, you probably weren't even born yet. You can't be so impudent. Next time, you have to be more careful, understand? Tian Xiezi stroked the beard on his chin and nodded at the old man in the purple-red robe in satisfaction. Then, Uncle Master, please send my disciple out. I want to take him with me. The old man in the purple-red robe spoke slowly, as if he did not hear Tian Xiezi's words. What? Do you have a different opinion about your second senior brother's punishment for your disciple? Surprise appeared on Tian Xiezi's face. The old man fell silent. He had no choice but to accept this reality. Because of Tian Xiezi, the seniority of the people in the 9th summit was much higher. For example, the young man who had injured his disciple. This person was indeed of the same generation as him. As for whether he was a senior brother or a junior brother, it was hard to tell in a short amount of time. Tian Xiezi, I don't have time to waste on you. I'll only ask you one thing. Are you going to let Ziche go or not? The old man frowned, and his expression gradually turned cold. He had already shown his courtesy. Even if he said those words now, it would still be acceptable. Are you trying to scare me? I won't let go, I won't let go, I won't let go. Tian Xiezi glared, revealing a domineering aura. The old man snorted coldly with a gloomy expression. He did not attack, but his cold harumph was like a clap of thunder, causing the entire 9th summit to tremble. The weather changed, the wind and clouds tumbled backwards, and fine cracks spread out on the layer of ice on the 9th summit. Tian Xiezi's eyes widened. He took a few steps back from the top of the mountain and let out a mournful scream. That mournful scream was enough to make anyone who heard it feel pity. Zi was in his cave abode. He had brought Ziche back a long time ago, and at that moment he threw him to the side. He squatted down beside Ziche and drank wine while smiling viciously and maliciously. Hearing Tian Xiezi's miserable voice, Zi raised his head and looked at the rock wall above the cave with a strange expression. Keep pretending, you old thing. Don't think that your grandpa don't think that his grandpa who doesn't know that you're wearing white today. That mournful scream spread through the entire 9th summit and also reached second senior brother's ears, who was sitting beside Su Ming. Second senior brother had his head lowered and was fiddling with the plants before him, looking as if he did not hear anything. Master, I saw that you're wearing white today. Second senior brother shook his head with a gentle look on his face, as if he was talking to the plants before him in a low voice. At the same time, at the bottom of the ninth summit was the basin located in the depths of the cracks in the ice. The place was originally quiet, but at that moment, a faint murmur traveled forth. Master, you should be wearing white today. That voice belonged to eldest senior brother. Tian Xie screamed and retreated at the top of the ninth summit. When he saw the old man in the purple-red long robe walking towards him from the air, he quickly let out a shrill cry once again. Young tiger, save me. I promise I won't ask for wine from you anymore. Hu Zi drank a mouthful of wine in the cave abode and glared at Ziche before him. He slapped his head, causing Ziche to shudder. He glared at Hu Zi in anger. How dare you glare at your grandpa? Who like that? I'll kill you. Hu Zi seemed to have found a way to stop himself from thinking about his master's screams. He stretched out his hand and slapped Ziche's head once again. Once Tian Xie shouted a few words from the top of the mountain, he saw the old man getting closer and stepping on the ninth summit. The moment his foot landed, the ninth summit let out a violent rumble. Second, if you still don't save Master, then I'm telling you, I'll tear down all the plants on the mountain. Second senior brother sat by Su Ming's side as if he did not hear anything. He continued caressing the plants before him and whispered softly to Su Ming. If you want to tear them down, then so be it. I'll just plant them after you're done. It's fine. Don't you think so, youngest junior brother? Second senior brother lifted his head and looked at Su Ming, who had his eyes closed and smiled faintly. The old man in purple robes from the second summit was looking at the screaming Tian Xie coldly from the top of the mountain. He frowned, lifted his right foot, and took a step forward. Eldest disciple, what the heck are you doing? Why are you still in isolation? All you know how to do is isolate yourself. Your master is about to die. If you still don't come out, then I'll have young tiger warm up your wine every day. The basin in the depths of the ninth summit was still silent. Eldest senior brother, who chose to isolate himself here, also pretended that he did not hear anything and immersed himself in his meditation. However, Tian Xie's voice was simply too shrill. After a moment, a sigh came from within the basin. Master, stop fooling around. That voice echoed within the basin and gradually spread out. In the blink of an eye, it echoed through the entire ninth summit and fell into Hu Zi's ears, causing his lifted hand to freeze. When it fell into second senior brother's ears, a glint appeared in his eyes. It also fell into the ears of the old man, walking towards Tian Xie. The old man's footsteps came to an abrupt halt, and his heart started pounding uncontrollably against his chest. His expression instantly changed, and at that moment, a layer of hot air appeared out of nowhere on his body, causing the air around him to instantly distort. However, he was not the one who caused this. Instead, it was the sound that formed a wave of ripples around his body that caused his heart to tremble. Faint roars of ferocious beasts seemed to be echoing within the distortions around his body. However, no one else could hear those roars. Only the old man could hear them clearly, and the appearance of that sound caused a grave expression to appear on his face. The sound of creation. The old man's pupils shrank. However, that sound only appeared for an instant before it gradually disappeared. The distortions around the old man's body also disappeared without a trace. The moment Tian Xie heard that sound, delight appeared on his face, but soon anger appeared on his face when the sound disappeared. Bastards. 3 bastard disciples. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have taken in any disciples in the past. You didn't help your master at such a crucial moment. I'm so angry. You little brat, don't force me. I'm telling you, if I attack, you'll immediately run away in a pathetic manner. The white-robed Tian Xie placed his right hand into his bosom and looked at the old man in purple robes. A stern expression gradually appeared on his face. As his expression turned stern, a mighty pressure slowly gathered on his body, causing the old man in purple robes, who had been shocked by the sound of creation, to also become solemn. He had originally thought nothing of the ninth summit. In fact, it could even be said that this was the first time he came to the ninth summit. However, the series of events that happened just then made him remember the rumors about the ninth summit that had been circulating around Freezing Sky Clan. If Uncle Master let my disciple go, then I'll immediately leave and never step foot into the ninth summit again. If not, then I'd like to see whether the rumors about Uncle Master are true. It's just the sound of creation. It's nothing. The old man in purple robes remained silent for a moment before he spoke in a low voice. As he spoke, the old man in purple robes walked towards Tian Xiezi. His footsteps were not quick, but as he walked forward, an increasingly stronger presence spread out from his body. There seemed to be faint illusions manifesting in the sky, and they were rapidly becoming corporeal. You force my hand. Eat my enchanted treasure. Tian Xiezi took a few steps back once again and brought his right hand out from his bosom. There was an item in his hand, a plate. The instant he brought out the plate, pride appeared on Tian Xiezi's face. He waved the plate at the old man. How dare you, lad? Do you know what this is? As Tian Hanzi shouted, the old man in purple robes came to an abrupt halt. He looked at the plate in Tian Xiezi's hand. The plate was entirely purplish black and exuded a pure, freezing aura. It did not look fake, and no one in Freezing Sky Clan would dare to fake it. When he remembered Tian Xiezi's status in the clan, the old man's expression gradually changed drastically. Sometimes it was sullen, sometimes it was aggrieved, and sometimes it was resigned. All sorts of expressions fused together and turned into a long, complicated sigh. He wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed deeply towards Tian Xiezi. I, Kalong Zi, greet the clan master's plate. The one who holds the plate is the same as the clan master coming personally. I naturally recognize him. Why did you force me to bring out this plate? Let me tell you, I was the one who used this plate to snatch the ninth summit in the past. Didn't your master tell you? Oh well, looks like you're not your master's favorite disciple, or else he would have told you about something so important. I think you're quite pitiful. How about this? Just give me a few million stone coins, and I won't hold it against you for offending me. Tian Xiezi said arrogantly with his head lifted and chest puffed out. The old man in purple robes breathing quickened and veins gradually popped up on his face. However, when he saw the plate in Tian Xiezi's hand, he forced himself to endure it and wrapped his fist in his palm towards Tian Xiezi. Yes, master. Once he finished speaking, he immediately turned around and turned into a long arc that charged forward. In an instant, he left the ninth summit. He was afraid that if he moved any slower, he would not be able to suppress the aggrieved feeling in his heart. At that moment, he finally understood why his peers rarely went to the ninth summit. It was especially so for the lords of the summits. Most of them would choose to avoid the ninth summit, and Kalong Zi rarely paid attention to other things. He might be a powerful berserker of Freezing Sky Clan and a member of the second summit, but he was not the lord of the second summit. Besides, he had been staying in the great tribe of Freezing Sky for a long period of time. It was only during the past few years that he gradually moved to this place. The moment he left the ninth summit, Su Ming, who was sitting on the platform, slowly opened his eyes. I'll have to disappoint all of you. Today and tomorrow will be the first chapter. Today is the 6th of the month. I'll be playing outside with my daughter while I look for a place to write. At night, I'll be watching a movie with my daughter. Tomorrow is the sports day in her kindergarten. She really wants me to go and perform with her. There are 365 days in a year where I can let her not bother me for 362 days, but there are 3 days where I can't. One of them is her birthday, the other is the 6th of the month, and the last one is the sports day she's going to perform with her father. Please forgive me. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 232. The instant Su Ming opened his eyes, a brilliant light shone in his eyes. That light instantly returned to normal. At the same time, the thick layer of snow that had accumulated on Su Ming's body floated up on its own without a single sound and surrounded his body, slowly rotating around him. Second senior brother sat by the side with a smile on his face as he focused his attention on Su Ming. At that moment, Tian Xiezi, who had put away the plate with a smug look on his face, also seemed to have noticed it and looked toward Su Ming. However, the moment he looked at Su Ming, he looked very different from before. An awe-inspiring look slowly appeared on his face. At the same time, Huzi also walked out of his cave abode and stood outside, looking in the direction of the platform at the mountainside. There was also a pair of eyes looking towards them from the basin in the ice layer beneath the ninth summit. Su Ming opened his eyes, but there was only calmness within them. That calmness was different from his usual calmness. It was a calmness in his heart, a calmness that would not allow a single ripple to appear in his heart, even if the mountain crumbled and the earth cracked before him. What allowed him to be so calm was the snowflakes before his eyes. As they spun and danced in the air, as Su Ming lifted his right hand slowly, they immediately gathered on his right hand and turned into a snow brush. Su Ming held that brush in his hand and swung it in the air before him. With a few strokes, wherever the tip of the brush passed, snow would float in the air, causing Su Ming to draw a mountain in the air before him as he swung the brush. The outline of the mountain was formed by the snow. It floated in midair and looked normal, but if anyone looked at it for a long period of time, they would find that it looked as if it was alive. When he drew the mountain, Su Ming's heart was calm. It was a calmness that he had never felt before. It was a calmness that had never appeared in his heart ever since he left Dark Mountain. In that calmness, he did not know that his second senior brother was sitting behind him, did not know that Huzi was looking at him from the distance, did not know that his eldest senior brother was concerned about him in the basin within the mountain, and did not know that there was an old man in white at the top of the mountain. All his attention was focused on the brush in his right hand, on the snow left behind, and the scene he wanted to draw the most at that moment. As of this moment, he was not in a meditative trance, but rather, he seemed to be in a meditative trance. He did not close his eyes to enter that strange state, but rather, he seemed to be in the depths of that trance, unwilling to pull himself out. Creation, painting creation, this is the answer he gave me. On the top of the mountain, Tian Xiezi no longer had the comical expression he had when he faced the purple-robed old man. Instead, there was an indescribable wisdom as he looked at his fourth disciple. What our eldest brother has comprehended is the sound of creation. That's why he went into seclusion and entered a state of tranquility from the clamor. After he dispelled everything, what remained was his original heart. That's why he has cultivated the sound of creation. What second bro comprehended was flower creation. He used the creation of flowers and plants to create a pair of hands of creation that could control life and death. What third brother has comprehended is the word good fortune itself. It's like entering a dream. That's good fortune. I never imagined that fourth brother would actually comprehend the fourth transformation. Picture creation. Tian Xiezi murmured, his eyes shining brightly. On the platform, Su Ming looked at the mountain he had drawn. The brush in his right hand was still drawing, and gradually 5 summits appeared on the mountain. Dark Mountain was drawn out by him. At the instant Dark Mountain was drawn, the mark of the mountain appeared faintly on his face, as if it was reflecting off his face, causing Su Ming to show signs of his cultivation base circulating without his knowledge. The instant Su Ming finished drawing the mountain, he drew a long line downwards with the snow brush in his hand. That long line was a terrifying sight to behold, and it was like a sharp sword that exuded a shocking, killing intent. The moment that killing intent appeared, Tian Xiezi's expression immediately changed. At the same time, his second senior brother, who had been paying attention to Su Ming, also had a grave expression appear on his face. It was the same for Huzi, who was standing outside the cave abode in the distance. There was also the eldest senior brother, who was in seclusion. The moment he noticed the long scar, his breathing quickened. What a powerful, murderous aura! Su Ming did not notice any of this. He only acted according to his own heart, and in this state of peace, he created a picture and a life that belonged to him. His brush stopped at the end of a long line, and gradually the dark mountain tribe within his berserker mark appeared on his body. The plants, the trees, the houses slowly appeared before him and started shining with his berserker mark in the air. He did not know how much time had passed, but once the brush in his hand drew the outline of the entire dark mountain tribe, it stopped. In the void, painting in front of him, there were mountains and sceneries, grass and trees, houses connected together, and fences, forming a seemingly complete picture of a tribe. It was exactly the same as his berserker mark. However, Su Ming continued, lifting his hand. He just stopped, as if he did not know how he should draw his next line. His eyes were still calm, but there was confusion in the depths of that calmness. Time passed by. A long time passed by. Creation of flowers, creation of pictures, creation of creation. All of them are created from nothing. There are surprises in silence, and there are scenes in the mirror. Youngest junior brother, I think there's something missing in this picture. Second senior brother's gentle words echoed softly in Su Ming's ears. Su Ming fell silent. Gradually, the sky darkened and a moon appeared in the sky. Moonlight shone on the ground, and the silver light from the moon made all those who saw it feel chilled down their spines. No one in the ninth summit slept that night. All of them were staring at Su Ming. They knew that this day was incredibly important to him, especially since he had clearly found the method to clear his mind, but he was still a little lost and did not have a complete understanding of it. This was a crucial moment for Su Ming. Perhaps there were very few people outside the ninth summit in Freezing Sky Clan who understood this, but those who were on the ninth summit were different from the others. They knew just how important the first epiphany of those who entered the sect was. When the darkness in the sky slowly changed and light appeared in the horizon once again, the moon in the sky was about to disappear, and only an illusion remained. Su Ming's right hand, which had been frozen in place for a long time, moved abruptly. The moment he moved his right hand, Tian Xiezi's face immediately turned incredibly grave. Second senior brother, third senior brother, and the eldest senior brother, who was still in isolation, all reacted the same way. They watched Su Ming's right hand move, and with the brush in his hand, he drew a circle on the picture of Dark Mountain Tribe that was drawn in the air. This circle was very simple and could be completed with one line, but it was this simple line that took Su Ming an entire night. The moment he finished drawing it, Su Ming started trembling furiously. A circle also gradually appeared on his face beside the Dark Mountain mark. At the same time, Su Ming's power started circulating in his body, and in an instant, it reached its peak. He could vaguely feel that he had reached the peak of the initial stage of the Transcendence Realm, and with just one more step, he would reach the middle stage of the Transcendence Realm. It was also at that moment that the circle on the picture Su Ming drew before him shone with a piercing light. That light was red, and the circle looked as if it was burning before it turned into a moon. The blood moon. The burning blood moon. This was the first berserker mark Su Ming had given up on when he was meditating. At that moment, in his calm state, he drew it on the very first picture of his life. The moment the blood moon was drawn, the presence on the picture changed abruptly and turned into the picture of the blood moon in Dark Mountain. A shocking murderous aura appeared from the picture of the blood moon in Dark Mountain. That murderous aura was so thick that it made a grave expression appear on second senior brother's face. Hu Zi, who was outside the cave, shuddered and mumbled a few words under his breath. As for the eldest senior brother, who was in isolation, he remained silent for a long while before he let out a sigh. The ninth summit might no longer have peace from now on, but he's our youngest junior brother. That alone is enough. The appearance of the picture of the blood moon in Dark Mountain made Su Ming's body tremble, and his power broke through its previous limit. Banging sounds reverberated through his body, and his level of cultivation rose from the initial stage of the Transcendence Realm to the middle stage of the Transcendence Realm. One epiphany, One picture and one stroke of the blood moon changed Su Ming's mark, and because of it, his level of cultivation reached a breakthrough. Tian Xiezi's disciple does not need any skills or divine abilities. He only needs to understand and clear his mind to understand the creation of the world. Tian Xiezi's words appeared in Su Ming's mind. At that moment, he finally understood what Tian Xiezi was teaching him. It was a path of training the mind that was completely different from other people's. The lineage of the Ninth Summit did not practice any skills or power. Neither did they practice any divine abilities or arts. They practiced the mind. Tian Xiezi was silent as he stood at the top of the mountain. After a long while, he turned around slowly and walked towards the sealed hall. His back was slightly limping, but his footsteps were steady. When he turned around, no one could see the sorrowful determination on his face. "Master, I will prove to you that the Berserker tribe's path of training is wrong." "You're wrong. All of you are wrong." Once Tian Xiezi left, the picture before Su Ming on the Ninth Summit's platform gradually turned into snowflakes, once again as the calmness in Su Ming's eyes disappeared, and he truly woke up. The moment Su Ming woke up, his second senior brother's gentle voice traveled into his ears. "Youngest junior brother, I think this place is pretty good. I want to plant some plants on the platform. What do you think?" Su Ming was momentarily stunned. He turned his head around and immediately saw his second senior brother, who had appeared at some point in time. He quickly got up and looked at the plants that had already filled the platform. Second senior brother, could you leave a place for me to meditate?" "Oh, all right. I'll leave a small place for you." Second senior brother blinked and smiled gently. "By the way, during the days you were trying to gain your epiphany, second senior brother caught a living creature for you. I left it with your third senior brother. You can go and take a look when you're free. Also, there's a very pretty disciple niece who came to look for you. If you have the chance to see her, remember to help me ask the girl by her side what her name is. I'll start updating as per normal tomorrow. I'll rest for the chapters 1-0 and continue paying my debts. When will this end? Please give me monthly votes to encourage me. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 233. A Pretty Disciple Niece. Su Ming had just woken up and did not think too much about it. When he heard the word disciple niece, he could not help but be stunned. She's very pretty. She's a girl. Second senior brother smiled gently and nodded his head. What's her name? Only at that moment did Su Ming remember Tian Xiezi's seniority, and a strange look appeared on his face. Second senior brother scratched his head and fell into deep thought for a moment before he sighed and said, "She's... What's her name?" Youngest junior brother, I was only paying attention to the girl beside her just now. I forgot her name. Su Ming looked at the slightly dazed second senior brother before him, and gradually, a warmth that came from within his body filled his entire body. He might not have woken up for a long time, but he could clearly remember that when he entered that strange state and sat on the platform, his second senior brother was not by his side. At that moment, his second senior brother was sitting behind him. Su Ming could not imagine how long he had been sitting there. This was a silent form of care, a warmth that made Su Ming feel touched. He stood up and instinctively lifted his head to cast a glance at the top of the Ninth Summit. The first thing he saw was a back that was slowly walking into the distance. That back was gradually covered by the ice mountain, causing Su Ming to be unable to see it. Yet even though it was just a glance, the old back was familiar to Su Ming. "Thank you, second senior brother." Su Ming averted his gaze and looked at his second senior brother standing before him. He did not even know his name, but in his heart, the title of second senior brother had already left a deep impression on him. "We're brothers. There's no need to thank me. Besides, I didn't do anything. I just planted some flowers here." Second senior brother smiled and stood up, stretching his back. "I'm going to sleep. I haven't slept for a few days. Youngest junior brother, remember to help me ask around." As he spoke, second senior brother blinked again. A rare hint of red appeared on his face, as if he was a little embarrassed by Su Ming's repeated reminders. "That's right. your meditation technique is the painting realm. Since that's the case, you need to be immersed in it for a long period of time. Drawing in the air like just now will use the cultivation power in your body to condense the painting. This is not good. This is the condensation of external energy. It can only be used a little, but not too much. It's difficult to truly use it to calm one's mind, and it's not suitable for cultivating one's mind. Look at the flowers and plants that Senior Brother has planted. When has he ever used his cultivation power to stimulate them to grow? Doing it naturally is the way to calm one's mind. How about this? Your third Senior Brother is more familiar with Freezing Sky Clan. Ask him to bring you to the artifact storage hall in the mountain under Heaven Gate. I remember that there are some drawing papers from Freezing Sky Clan there. They might be expensive, but go to Master and use his Clan Master's plate. You won't have to spend money then. When a smile appeared on Su Ming's face, second Senior Brother turned around and walked towards the mountain trail by the side of the platform. His back was incredibly elegant, and as his hair spilled in the wind, he gradually disappeared from Su Ming's sight. As he watched his second Senior Brother leave into the distance, the warmth in Su Ming's heart spread through his entire body. He looked at the mountain rocks of the ninth summit, then at his surroundings. Gradually, a feeling as if this was his home slowly rose in his heart. Perhaps as time passed by, this feeling would grow stronger until he completely blended into this place and turned this place into his second home. Su Ming meditated for an entire day in his cave abode. On the second afternoon, he stabilized his cultivation base in the middle stage of the Transcendence realm before he walked out once again. Su Ming still did not quite understand the increase in his level of cultivation this time. He was just confused. The main reason for the increase in his level of cultivation was to train his mind. Train my mind and clear my mind to understand my own serendipity. Su Ming touched the spot where the blood moon had appeared beside the hidden mountain mark on his face. The location of the blood moon might sound a little strange, but it was right in front of Su Ming's right eye. The blood moon in my right eye. Su Ming took a deep breath, and his expression gradually calmed down. He walked down the mountain path, and before long, a cave abode appeared before him. Before he even got close, he could already smell the fragrance of wine mixed with snoring. The snoring rumbled and sounded like thunder. Su Ming stood outside the cave abode and paused for a moment. He had come here to see just what sort of living thing his second Senior Brother had been talking about. He was slightly puzzled by this. Now that he was here and saw his third Senior Brother's cave abode, Su Ming decided to bend his back and walk in through the door. The moment he entered the cave, the snoring was deafening and echoed in the cave. Huzi was lying not too far away. There was still a long line of drool at the corner of his mouth. There was an intoxicated look on his face, as if he was doing something happy in his dreams. Beside him, there was a person covered in plants lying there. His right hand was tightly gripped by the unconscious Huzi. There were fewer plants on his face, and one could clearly see the pain on his face. At that moment, his eyes were closed, as if he was also immersed in a dream and doing something unhappy. His body would occasionally twitch a few times. This was the first time Su Ming came to Huzi's cave abode. He was momentarily stunned when he saw this person in a vegetative state, but he did not think too much about it. He just thought that this was a unique characteristic of Huzi's training. When he saw that his third Senior Brother was still unconscious, Su Ming sat down cross-legged by his side. He did not disturb Huzi, but chose to meditate and wait. Time trickled by. Several hours later, when the sky outside darkened as if it was almost dusk, Huzi's snoring reached its peak, and the moment it started, it stopped. He opened his eyes and rubbed them a few times, then wiped off the drool at the corner of his mouth. Only then did he see Su Ming sitting not too far away. "Ha ha, you're here." Huzi laughed foolishly and scratched his head. He picked up the pot of wine by his side and took another sip. "That was a good night's sleep. Damn you. Why didn't you listen to me again?" Huzi put down the pot of wine and looked at the person in a vegetative state. He swung his hand and slapped him. "You're still sleeping? Wake up." The person in a vegetative state shuddered when he was slapped. He opened his eyes, and the first thing he saw was Huzi, who had suddenly stretched his head out and was glaring at him ferociously. When he saw Hu Zi, he clearly shuddered, and anger and fear intertwined together appeared in his eyes. How does it feel to sleep with your grandpa, Hu? There was a smug look on Hu Zi's face. He turned his head around and slapped the person in the vegetative state's head with his right hand once again. Once Hu Zi moved his body away, the person in a vegetative state immediately saw Su Ming, who was looking at him calmly. The moment he saw Su Ming, a complicated look appeared in his eyes. The complicated look on his face could be understood as resignation, regret, as well as lament and grievance. Third senior brother, who is this person? Su Ming cast the person in a vegetative state a calm look. He could see the complicated look in the person's eyes, and a hint of surprise appeared in his heart. You don't know? That's right. You were trying to gain an epiphany just now. This person's name is Zi Che, and he's a really powerful person. When you were in isolation, he wanted to harm you, but he was unlucky. He shouldn't have broken my gourd, and he shouldn't have stepped on second senior brother's plants. In the end, he was tied up by second senior brother and said that he was giving it to us. Hu Zi laughed, and his expression became even more smug. He got up and slapped the head of Zi Che's car once again, causing a loud bang to ring out. Zi Che seemed to have gotten used to Hu Zi's slaps, but when he was slapped right in front of Su Ming's face, the anger in his heart grew stronger. In his eyes, if the terrifying hand of creation did not exist, then it did not matter whether it was Su Ming or his grandson. They would have to look up to him. But now, Su Ming's expression remained calm. He's the living thing second senior brother mentioned, right? Su Ming said unhurriedly. Second senior brother already told you. That's right, he's the living thing, but youngest junior brother, don't snatch him from me. I haven't had enough fun with him yet. Once I bring him into my dreams a few more times, I'll throw him to you. Damn it! How dare you break my gourd? Hu Zi glared at Zi Che and lifted his palm again. Third senior brother, wait a moment. I have some questions to ask him. Su Ming stood up and walked towards Zi Che. He stood before him and looked at the person covered in plants. Zi Che stared at Su Ming coldly, and a disdainful look gradually appeared in his eyes. He might have been captured and humiliated by Hu Zi, but as a powerful berserker, he had his own pride, especially since Su Ming was clearly the weakest among them. He was like an ant. Even if an elephant was tied up, it would never submit to an ant. Su Ming crouched down and looked at Zi Che as he said calmly, I just came to Freezing Sky Clan. No one should be paying attention to me. You came to the 9th Summit to look for me, because Sima Xian asked you to come, right? Zi Che's eyes were cold and filled with disdain, as if he did not hear Su Ming's words. Third senior brother, how much of this person's power was sealed by second senior brother? Su Ming's expression remained the same as he asked softly. It's all sealed. Once we're done playing with him, we'll just have our senior brother remove some of his power. That'll be fun. Hu Zi rubbed his hands together, and excitement appeared in his eyes, as if he had experienced this before. When he heard Hu Zi's words, Zi Che's expression clearly changed, but he gritted his teeth and forced himself to remain calm. However, from the way he occasionally looked at Hu Zi, Su Ming could tell that this person was clearly afraid of Hu Zi. It was clear that he was not afraid of him. We can't waste such a rare material. Su Ming looked at Zi Che and smiled faintly. That smile was as faint as a breeze, and it looked as if he was completely unharmed. Yet the moment his words fell into Zi Che's ears, Zi Che's heart lurched. For some unknown reason, the word material made Zi Che suddenly feel that the faint smile on Su Ming's face contained a ferociousness and terror that far surpassed Hu Zi's. Su Ming's smile made Zi Che's skin crawl. This was different from when he was facing Hu Zi. In his eyes, Hu Zi's actions might not have been so obvious that he could tell with just one glance. He might be afraid, but that was only because he was afraid of the ferociousness in his dreams. In truth, there was more disdain in Zi Che's heart. Yet this Su Ming before him gave him a completely different feeling. He could not tell what this person wanted to do. The word material kept echoing in his head, and the more he thought about it, the more terrified he became. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 234. Don't be afraid. Su Ming smiled. His voice was still calm as he crouched down and put his right hand into his bosom to bring out a few items. His actions had not only affected Ziche's heart and gaze, it had also made Hu Zi, who was by the side, incredibly curious. He quickly widened his eyes and watched. A beast bone and a few herbs. Once Su Ming brought out these normal items, disappointment appeared on Hu Zi's face. He mumbled a few words under his breath and did not want to look at them anymore. But when he saw the drastic change in Ziche's expression when he saw the items, he was immediately surprised. "What are you doing?" This was the first time Ziche spoke after he was captured. His voice was hoarse, but it was difficult for him to hide the fear contained within. He was indeed afraid, and this fear far surpassed the fear he felt when he was facing Hu Zi. This fear came from within his heart, because at the instant he saw the beast bone asking for medicinal herbs, he suddenly understood the meaning behind the word materials. The beast bone was a material, the medicinal herbs were fodder, and Ziche was actually seen as a material by the other party. The fear born from this understanding and association forced him to speak. Damn you can talk? Then why didn't you speak no matter what I asked you? Even when we were in the dream, you still didn't speak." Before Su Ming could say anything, Hu Zi widened his eyes and anger appeared on his face. He took a step forward and slapped Ziche once again. "How dare you lie to me? I hate people lying to me the most." Hu Zi slapped Ziche a few times in anger before he looked at the materials Su Ming brought out. "Fourth, why are you taking the bones and herbs?" Hu Zi scratched his head with a puzzled expression. "Third senior brother, you don't know this, but before I entered the Ninth Summit, I created many medicinal liquids myself. His body is very good, and he's very suitable for the medicine I want to create." Su Ming smiled faintly and picked up a herb. He swept his gaze across Ziche's body, and the moment he opened his mouth to speak again, he crushed it and took out some of the medicinal seeds within. He pointed at Ziche's chest and tore open his flesh. The moment blood flowed out, he pressed the medicinal seeds into his flesh. Su Ming continued patting Ziche's body a few more times before withdrawing his hand. Ziche did not feel much pain, but soon his chest became numb. When he lowered his head, he saw to his terror that the medicinal seed in his chest was growing at a rapid pace in an incredibly bizarre manner. As it grew, Ziche's expression changed drastically. This change was not any weaker than when he faced Su Ming's second senior brother's hand of creation. He could clearly feel that the herb was absorbing his flesh and life force as it grew. In fact, the roots of the herb were slowly spreading through his body. He could ignore the pain of having the herb crawling into his flesh, but the fear of the unknown made his breathing quicken. When he looked at Su Ming, there was a terror that had never appeared before in his eyes. It was especially so when Su Ming took some of the blood from the carriage and dripped it on the beast bone. The terror in Ziche's heart reached its peak, and he quickly spoke. "What the hell are you doing?" "Making medicine." Su Ming lifted his head and cast Ziche a glance before he spoke with a smile. "What medicine?" Ziche shuddered. Hu Zi was completely focused by the side, but there was still a puzzled look on his face. However, when he saw Ziche's expression, he could not help but admire Su Ming. "Fourth, you're still the best. With just a few moves, you managed to make this guy so scared. Looks like your smart grandpa who will have to learn from you." Hu Zi nodded his head with a pensive look on his face. It's easy to describe this medicine. You need to plant some herbs in the body of a living dead and use his flesh and life force as nutrients. Once the herbs are fully mature, the living dead will become the main ingredient of this medicine. You can call him medicine human. Then, you need to use the aura of death to refine it. When the medicine disappears, it'll be the moment the medicine human dies, and the death of the medicine human means the life of the medicine. Don't worry, I've done it once before, so I'm already familiar with the process. I promise you that you won't feel any pain." Su Ming smiled as he spoke. His words naturally had a strange tone to them. He even brought out a few more herbs and personally planted them on Ziche's body. His actions were gentle, as if he was afraid of damaging the herbs and the material before him. However, his actions fell into Ziche's eyes, especially when Su Ming's seemingly casual words that were filled with determination echoed in his ears. Ziche's face instantly turned pale, and his gaze as he looked at Su Ming could no longer be described as fear and panic. It had turned into shock. Even Hu Zi sucked in a sharp breath when he heard it. When he looked at Su Ming, there was a strange look in his eyes. Eldest senior brother is a turtle. He's always in isolation. Second senior brother likes to farm and sneaks away in the middle of the night. As for master, let's not talk about him. I thought that besides me, there's also a new youngest junior brother in the mountain, but I didn't expect him to have such a strange hobby. He treats people as ingredients and turns them into medicinal liquid, then drinks them. Hu Zi shuddered and let out a long sigh. He had already thought about how he would introduce his fourth to his fifth junior brother in the future. Your second senior brother said that he'll only restrict my freedom for 3 years. After 3 years, he'll let me go. Ziche cried out anxiously. It's fine. I can beg him to change the 3 years into a lifetime. Su Ming smiled as he spoke. He did not lift his head, but continued digging holes in Ziche's body and placing the herbs inside. We're from the same sect. You can't do this. My master won't forgive you. Ziche looked at Su Ming's smiling face, and his terror reached its peak. To him, that face was practically the most terrifying sight in the world. He suddenly understood why Sima Xin still wanted him to take away an item from Su Ming's body, even though he was already on the way. It's fine. I have a master as well. Su Ming still did not lift his head. He brought out another herb seriously, as if he was hesitating about where he should place it on Ziche's body. Damn it, Sima Xin isn't asking me to return the favor. He's just harming me. This Su Ming might not have a high level of cultivation, but the terror I felt from him is definitely not fake. This person is definitely not ordinary. I can't judge him based on his level of cultivation. In his terror, Ziche gritted his teeth and sighed in his heart. It's Sima Xin. He's the one who asked me to come to you and take away your bell. Ziche quickly said. Su Ming held the herb in his right hand and lifted his head slowly. His expression was still calm, but in Ziche's eyes, it was like the calm before the storm, as if there was a storm brewing within him. It was especially so for Su Ming's right eye. In Ziche's eyes, there was a hint of red. That red was the murderous aura. That murderous aura did not explode outwards, but when it appeared, the cave abode instantly turned cold. Ziche's heart trembled. He had a feeling that he did not dare look at Su Ming's right eye. Hu Zi also sucked in a sharp breath and shuddered. He could feel that at that instant, his youngest junior brother was completely different from before. Where is Sima Xin? Su Ming asked unhurriedly. His voice sounded the same as before, but when it fell into Ziche's ears, it was as if thunder was roaring. In fact, there were even some lightning arcs swimming around his body before they disappeared. He's on his way back to the school. Judging by the time, he should be back in 2 days. I owed him a favor in the past. That's why he sent me a letter. I couldn't refuse him. I offended him, and it wasn't my intention. Ziche trembled and quickly spoke. He did not know why he had to say so much to explain himself, but he had a strong feeling that if he did not give a clear explanation for what happened today, then even if he did not die in the end after coming to the Ninth Summit, he would still leave behind a great disaster in the future. This was his intuition. After spending some time with Su Ming, this intuition had suddenly grown in him. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before a red light flashed in his right eye, and he asked calmly, "What is Sima Xion's level of cultivation?" He's been away for many years. When he left, he had attained great completion in the Transcendence realm. As for his current level of cultivation, I've never seen it before, so I'm not too sure. But if he can reach the Bone Sacrifice realm, then he'll definitely think of a way to enter Freezing Sky Cave and understand the will left behind by those who came before him. Then he'll have a chance to complete the transformation of all the bones in his body from the initial stage of the Bone Sacrifice realm and reach great completion in the bone sacrifice realm. The possibility of this happening might be rare, and based on what I know, there are only 3 people who could do this in the past 6,000 years. But if he really found the remains of the ancestral berserkers in Freezing Sky Cave, then there's still a chance that he could do it. He's the prodigy of Freezing Sky Clan and is known as one of the people who has the highest chance of becoming the 4th god of berserkers. He has a lot of friends in Freezing Sky Clan. Besides the 9th summit, most of the other 8 summits are his people. If he wants to become your enemy, then you'd better watch yourself. Ziche's voice echoed in the cave and lingered for a long time. Where's Freezing Sky Cave? This was the first time Su Ming heard of this name. I don't know the specifics, but it's rumored that the great frozen plains of Freezing Sky Clan was built on top of Freezing Sky Cave. If that's the case, then Freezing Sky Cave is located in the depths of the endless frozen water beneath us. The 9th summit is still within Freezing Sky Clan, Ziche said once again. Once he finished speaking, he hesitated for a moment and looked at the herbs on his body. He gritted his teeth, and his voice suddenly became much softer. If I were you, I would definitely end the grudge between us before he enters Freezing Sky Cave, or else it doesn't matter if he wins or loses. As long as he can walk out of Freezing Sky Cave alive, then he might enter Heaven Gate. Once he enters Heaven Gate, his status will be completely different from the great frozen plains of Freezing Sky Clan. At that time, if he wants to kill you, then unless the 9th summit has the power to fight against Heaven Gate, then you'll definitely die. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he asked languidly, Heaven Gate. Freezing Sky Clan is divided into the great frozen plains of Freezing Sky and Heaven Gate. Only those who enter Heaven Gate can be considered as the core of Freezing Sky Clan. Besides inheriting the legacy, the only way to enter Heaven Gate is to obtain the heads of 1,000 shamans and not die in Freezing Sky Cave. If you like this work, then please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 235. Huzi watched the conversation between Su Ming and Ziche with a dumbfounded expression. When he saw the change in Ziche's demeanor, he could not help but remember his previous actions. Looks like youngest junior brother has some tricks up his sleeves. I have to learn this method. Huzi recalled Su Ming's words and actions in his head and felt that he had learned it. A prideful smile appeared on his face. What Heaven Gate and Earth Gate? Youngest junior brother, if you don't like that Seaman Yao, I'll beat him up for you. If we can't win, we'll run and go back to the 9th summit to look for second senior brother. When he heard Huzi's words, warmth rose in Su Ming's heart. By the way, youngest junior brother, why did you come looking for me? If there's nothing else, I'll go out for a walk. I haven't left the mountain for a few days. I'm worried that the people outside will miss me. Huzi picked up his wine gourd and shook it. There was not much wine left in it. It's like this. Third senior brother, you're more familiar with Freezing Sky Clan. I want to go to the artifact storage hall in the mountain under Heaven Gate and take some of the papers second senior brother mentioned. I'll use them as a method to clear my mind and train. But before that, I'll have to borrow the Clan Master's plate from Master, Su Ming said with a smile. Clan Master's plate? You don't have to ask Master for that. I have a few of them. As Huzi spoke, he looked around the cave abode and brought out a purple ice cube that looked like a plate from a corner. Here, this is it. Master has a lot of them. When I went there last time, I brought a few back. I'll give you one. Take it and use it to scare the people around you. As Huzi spoke, he threw the plate in his hand to Su Ming. Su Ming was momentarily stunned. Once he caught it, he immediately felt a wave of cold air coming from the plate and flowing through his body. By the looks of it, it was incredibly exquisite and did not seem fake. He was not the only one stunned. Ziche was also stunned and sucked in a sharp breath. He recognized this item, but Huzi's words left him in disbelief. The 9th summit. Is this the 9th summit? Ziche's heart trembled. Let's go. I'm familiar with the artifact storage hall. I've beaten up quite a lot of people in there before. Huzi patted his chest and was about to leave with Su Ming when he took a few steps forward, but he turned around and stood before Ziche with widened eyes. Damn you, I'm going out. You're a living creature, second senior brother gave us. Remember to follow behind me. Although second senior brother has sealed your cultivation, he said that you have to protect little junior brother when he goes out. You will definitely be able to do it. Don't lie to your grandpa who anymore, or I will teach you a lesson in my dreams. But my power is indeed sealed. I can't fly on my own. Ziche quickly said, feeling and feeling. And Su Ming-che, shut up. Your grandpa tiger can take you out and throw you down. If you can't fly, you'll fall to your death. Don't blame Grandpa Tiger for not saving you. Su Che and Su Ming smiled and turned to Su before he and left. Ming, Su, Che, and Su Ming's face. Su Ming was behind them. He looked at Zi Che, who was covered in flowers and plants, being carried, and had an angry but aggrieved expression on his face. He smiled faintly and followed behind them. The three of them turned into two long arcs and shot up from the ninth summit. They charged towards the center, surrounded by the 9 summits under Heaven Gate in the distance. There was a large group of buildings there, and they looked incredibly luxurious. There was also a majestic air spreading out from them. Each and every one of the buildings looked like they were carved out of jade and were filled with a majestic aura. Outside the halls, there were countless figures shuttling in and out of the halls. It was a bustling scene. Zi, who was leading the way in midair, let go of his right hand the moment he flew out of the 9th summit's territory and threw Zi Che down from midair. Then, he let out a loud roar. TSK, you fell to your death. Zi Che's face was pale. He charged downwards, but when he fell nearly 1,000 feet, delight suddenly appeared on his face. His body stopped falling, and he jumped into the air. Yet very soon, the delight on his face turned into anguish. He realized that he could not stay too far away from Su Ming and Hu Zi, or else once he regained his power, it would immediately be sealed once again. He did not even need to try to know that if he attacked Su Ming and Hu Zi, then his temporarily unsealed power would immediately be sealed once again. Haha, how dare you put on an act in front of your grandpa, Hu? You'll be out once you try. What are you looking at? Hurry up and follow behind me. Hu Zi glared at him. Zi Che fell silent, then sighed and followed behind Su Ming. Su Ming looked at Hu Zi's words and actions, and the smile on his face grew wider. Youngest junior brother, that's the 8th summit. It's very interesting. There are quite a lot of people living there, and they're usually very careful. It's as if they're hiding some sort of secret. But who am I? I'm the smartest grandpa who in the 9th summit. What sort of secret can be hidden from me? I even know about second senior brother's matters. I can walk through the 8th summit's rune even with my eyes closed, and I've seen a lot of interesting things. For example, I saw a disciple niece dressed up as a man in the past. Wow. I even saw her taking off her clothes. As Hu Zi spoke, he beamed with delight. That's the 7th summit. All the disciples, they're female. It's a pity that the rune might be weak, but the people inside are too careful. There were a few times where I was almost caught. There were even a few times where I was caught. Thank goodness I ran fast, but it's a pity second senior brother didn't help me and just watch me get beaten up. That's the 2nd summit, and it's also where Zi Che lives. The secrets here can't be hidden from me. In the past, Su Ming was not affected by Hu Zi's smug words. Even though he felt that something was off as he listened, Zi Che, who was standing by his side, laughed wryly. There was a rumor circulating in the 2nd summit that said that every single time a disciple went out at night, they would feel as if someone was spying on them. It was only later on that they found out that this Hu Zi was the one who did it. That person would always appear in the various summits and hide in the dark, snickering and spying on them. This was something that almost everyone in Freezing Sky Clan knew about. The 3 of them charged forward in midair, and after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the 3 of them arrived at the center of the 9 summits under Heaven Gate, as Hu Zi told Su Ming about his achievements in Freezing Sky Clan and the secrets he had spied on. Hu Zi took a huge step forward and charged towards one of the large buildings on the ground. He flew quickly. There were quite a number of Freezing Sky Clan disciples who were going in and out of the place on the way. When they saw Hu Zi, Strange expressions would appear on their faces, and they would quickly avoid him, as if they did not want to provoke this scoundrel and make him spy on them at night. It was especially so for the female disciples. When they saw Huzi, they gritted their teeth. Some of them even wanted to fly towards him, but when they saw Ziche, who was right behind them, they retreated with hesitation. Ziche was famous in Freezing Sky Clan because he was ranked 9th on the Great Frozen Plains ranking board. When he saw this, Ziche suddenly understood why Huzi insisted on bringing him along. Su Ming also understood. With a wry smile, he looked at Huzi, who looked incredibly pleased with himself, and who looked as if he was floating even when he was flying. Hey, you berserkers, what are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll go to your rooms tonight and look at you to my heart's content. Yo, disciple nephew, why aren't you greeting your grandpa, who when you see him? Can't you see that even Ziche is following behind us? Huzi's roars continued on the way, causing Ziche's expression to turn darker. Su Ming did not know whether to laugh or cry. When he saw that Huzi's actions were about to become even more ridiculous, and that he was walking around the buildings at the center of the 9 summits under Heaven Gate with a smug look on his face, Ziche, who was following behind Su Ming, could no longer withstand the pressure and whispered to Su Ming. Su. Uncle Master Su, that's the artifact storage hall. Uncle Master, who has already walked around it 8 times. As he spoke, he pointed at a hall not too far away. Su Ming let out a fake cough. Once he cast a glance at the artifact storage hall, he turned towards Huzi, who was still shouting at the Freezing Sky Clan disciples, and said with a wry smile, "Third senior brother, let's go to the artifact storage hall first. If you like wandering around, then I'll have Ziche accompany you later. I still have to go back to the mountain to train." When Huzi heard that, he looked as if he wanted to continue, but he turned around and became serious. "Youngest junior brother, who said that I like wandering around? To me, bringing you to the artifact storage hall is the most important thing. I can't seem to find it. Let me take a look. The artifact storage hall is here." Huzi pointed at the artifact storage hall not too far away and put on a look of pleasant surprise. As he spoke, Huzi had already arrived at the entrance to the artifact storage hall. However, the door was already shut. Su Ming remembered that the person inside had immediately closed the door when he saw Huzi walking past. Open up, open up. Your grandpa who is here. I'm not going to beat you up today. If you still don't open up, I'm going to get angry." Huzi went to the door and lifted his foot to kick it. Very soon, the door was opened, and a handsome young man with a dark face and a clearly resigned expression appeared within. He was frowning and had a dark expression on his face. The young man stood there and looked at Huzi. He opened his mouth as if he was about to say something. You're the one here today? I was wondering why the door was closed." "Youngest junior brother, she's the girl disguised as a man I told you about. I saw her in the past." The young man's face instantly turned incredibly sour. Veins even popped up on his face. Su Ming quickly went forward and pulled back Huzi, who was still howling in delight. He smiled at the young man, and there was an apologetic look on his face. Disciple nephew, about this, before Su Ming could finish speaking, his expression suddenly froze. Immediately, a commotion traveled into his ears. Even the young man before him lifted his head and looked at the sky behind Su Ming. A zealous and respectful look appeared on his face. 7-colored light. Eldest senior brother Si Ma is back. There's no mistaking it. That's eldest senior brother Si Ma's 7-colored mountain. Look, isn't that eldest senior brother Si Ma sitting on a mountain? There's a girl sitting beside him. She looks a little familiar. It's really eldest senior brother Si Ma. Commotion broke out all over the place. Su Ming could already see the sky through the corner of his eyes. At that moment, a layer of 7-colored light pierced through the sky. He turned around slowly and looked at the sky, begging for recommendation votes. The recommendation votes for the Devil Seeker are always fluctuating. It's Monday today. Recommendation votes are very important. Begging for recommendation votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.